story kicks off with a young guy starting his job as a roadside fortune teller specializing in marriage. A girl approaches him and asks for a reading. She asks if her marriage to her fiancé will actually work out. He uses his special powers, which show up as a blue glow in his eyes. He analyzes her facial features with his supernatural abilities. He tells her that the marriage palace on her face looks dark. He explains that this marriage might not be as happy as it seems on the surface. Her friend gets angry and blames him for talking like that. She tells him to say something nice on such a happy day. The fortune teller calmly asks them if they'd rather hear beautiful lies. The girl asks him to explain why he thinks her marriage won't be happy. He points out that the tip of her nose is dark and dull. He explains that her wealth palace is covered in dust, which is a bad omen. He concludes that the person she's marrying is struggling with failing finances. Her fiancé arrives, and the fortune teller describes him as looking tough on the outside but drowning in debt. The fiancé gets furious and calls him rude, even though they were supposed to be his customers. He accuses him of spreading superstitions and cursing them, while the fortune teller keeps analyzing his face. The fortune teller tells him he sees a black aura covering the area between his eyebrows. He explains that this is a sign of an imminent legal problem. He warns him that it could range from a simple lawsuit to a serious prison sentence. The fiancé looks worried when the fortune teller mentions a big business deal he had recently. He predicts that the deal will be a total disaster, and he'll lose everything. He confronts him, saying he knows exactly who scammed him. He confirms that these signs on his face mean prison is his inevitable fate. The girl asks her fiancé in shock if what the fortune teller said is true. He tries to convince her to ignore it, calling it nonsense. She insists on seeing what's inside his bag and grabs it from him. She opens it to find a debt certificate for $5 million. She screams in absolute shock. The fiancé tries to justify the situation and asks her to let him explain. Her friend steps in and pushes him away from her. The police arrive and take control of the situation while the girl looks devastated. The fortune teller gets a notification from his system that the first of 3 missions is complete. The scene flashes back 3 days, where a doctor was explaining his medical condition. He tells the young man he has at most 3 months left to live. He receives the news with deep shock and grief. His medical report appears, diagnosing him with a brain tumor and confirming his remaining time. The young man breaks down and cries after hearing the shocking news. He receives a mysterious notification from a system telling him a mission to reset his life has begun. It shows that the fortune-telling system has bonded with him to save his life. The system sets the mission location at the entrance of the marriage registration office. It sets the time daily between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. It explains that the goal is to successfully and accurately read the fortunes of 3 customers. The scene returns to the present as a huge man approaches him to be his second customer. He puts a large amount of money in front of him, asking for his services. He respectfully asks him to read his fortune regarding marriage. The fortune teller tells him his facial features look a bit strange. The man asks in surprise why they're strange. The fortune teller explains that the children's palace on his face is full and bright, which is a good sign. He explains that this means he will be blessed with righteous and obedient children. The man is deeply impressed by his accuracy and calls him a genius. He proudly tells him that his son gifted him a new car last month. He confirms that his son is very devoted to him and offers to show him a picture. He brags about his son's good looks while showing the photo on his phone. The fortune teller thinks to himself that it's like good land planted with someone else's crop. The man asks worriedly about the meaning of his mysterious words. The fortune teller points out that both he and his wife have square faces and wide jaws. He wonders how he had a son with sharp, delicate features that look nothing like them. The man remembers how his neighbors used to joke with him when he was younger. They used to say his wife was beautiful, but his son didn't look like her at all. They jokingly add that the son only inherited the best traits. The fortune teller returns to confirm that his son's facial details, like the brow bones and jaw shape, don't match his or his wife's features in any way. He concludes that this radical difference in features is unnatural. The man realizes the horrifying truth. An absolute shock appears on his face. He remembers his son's young features that don't look like him. Then he remembers him as a small child, which was also different. He collapses to the ground, admitting that his son really doesn't look like him. He bursts into bitter tears after discovering the shocking truth. The fortune teller receives a notification from his system that the second mission was successful. An elderly woman and an old man approach him, announcing it's their turn. She asks the fortune teller to read her and her husband's fortune. She asks if their marriage will bring them good luck. She clarifies that she only wants to hear some words that bring good fortune. The fortune teller describes her features as having prominent cheekbones and thin lips. He describes her as having harsh features and sanpaku eyes, which indicate evil. He explains that people with these eyes aren't kind-hearted. He tells her straight up that she's not really asking about marriage. He accuses her of trying to take over the old man's property. She gets furious and accuses him of slander, insisting their love is real. The fortune teller turns to the old man and tells him the property palace on his forehead is wide and full. He explains that this shows he comes from a wealthy family. He tells him specifically that he owns at least one house. He corrects himself, saying he now sees something different. He sees a black aura covering the property palace on his forehead. He warns him that this is an ill omen indicating someone will take over his house. The fortune teller points to the lady and accuses her of planning to steal the old man's home. He confronts her, saying she tricked the man into a fake marriage. He reveals that she's planning to take his money to buy a house for her son. He explains that her plan is to abandon him as soon as the house title is transferred to her name. The fortune teller tells the old lady she'll be abandoned the next day. She breaks down crying and strongly denies the claim. The fortune teller confidently points out a mole on her left eyebrow. He adds that its color leans toward deep black. He explains that this mark is known as the mole of deception and cunning. He explains that people who have it have bad intentions. He confirms that they usually specialize in gaining others' trust just to scam them later. He directly confronts her, saying she uses this trick to defraud the elderly. He confidently hints that this isn't the first time she's done this. She panics and tries to attack him. The bystanders quickly intervene and hold her back. The old man sits on the ground, sighing in relief and thanking him for saving him. The fortune teller gets a notification from his internal system that the triple reading mission is a success. He reads another alert stating the system is calculating his rewards. A message appears confirming his remaining lifespan has increased by 30 days. He receives extra congratulations for getting a huge cash reward of 1 million yuan. He looks at his phone with deep relief and whispers to himself that he finally survived. He checks the time, making sure he finished work right on schedule. He announces to the crowd that his working hours for today are over. The gathered crowd begs him to stay for a while longer. Someone offers him 100,000 for one extra reading. The girl he helped earlier steps in and offers him 500,000. Their excitement grows, and they start shouting tempting financial offers. The scene is interrupted by guards in black suits clearing a path through the crowd. An elegant man steps forward and introduces himself as Wang Zhenhua. He presents a black bank card worth 5 million for just one extra reading. The crowd is shocked and stunned by the massive amount offered. The fortune teller calmly rejects the offer, apologizing that today's quota is full. The wealthy man insists, trying to convince him that rules can be broken. He adds that humans are flexible and can adapt to exceptional circumstances. He offers to increase the amount if 5 million isn't enough to convince him. The fortune teller ignores the offer and looks at his phone, noting it's almost 3 o'clock. He firmly reiterates that it's time for him to leave and he won't change his mind. He picks up his bag and leaves, leaving the powerful leader standing with his card in hand. The wealthy man stands shocked by the rejection in front of the civil affairs office. The crowd thinks about how this man has lived half his life used to being obeyed. They wonder at the fact that it's the first time he's met someone who can't be tempted by money. The scene shifts to later that night after the fortune teller returns home. He falls into a deep sleep while social media platforms explode with his news. A video of him rejecting the multi-million offer trends with millions of views. News spreads confirming the accuracy of his 3 readings that day. These clips prove his worth and earn him the title of the legendary fortune teller of the Civil Affairs Office. Media, influencers, and the wealthy begin a frantic search to find him. Offers to find him reach insane amounts exceeding 7 figures. The dream of these wealthy people becomes just to exchange a single word with him. The fortune teller suddenly wakes up after receiving a notification for a new mission. It sets a mission related to homicide crimes in front of the criminal investigation building at night. It stipulates that the reading method this time must be using tarot cards. His goal is to receive 3 clients related to criminal cases. He must succeed in reading their fortunes and uncovering secrets with extreme accuracy. He heads to the criminal investigation building at night wearing dark winter clothes. He sets up his spot and displays the tarot cards and a sign explaining his specialty in murder cases. A police officer notices him and approaches quickly and angrily. He shouts in his face, questioning his presence in such a sensitive security area. He scolds him, asking if he realizes what building he's sitting in front of. He sternly reminds him that this plaza isn't a night market to display his services. He firmly orders him to pack his things and leave immediately. The fortune teller responds with exhaustion, arguing that his session isn't blocking traffic or work. He begs him to let him stay for just 2 hours to finish his work. The officer flatly rejects the plea, refusing to let him stay for even a minute. He threatens to call his colleagues to forcibly remove him if he doesn't comply and leave. The fortune teller clings to his spot and holds his thermal mug, declaring his absolute refusal to leave. Another officer with sharp features appears, asking about the cause of the commotion outside. A senior detective comes out of the building to see what's going on. The fortune teller seizes the opportunity and speaks to him, claiming to have important evidence. The detective asks with interest and seriousness about the nature of the evidence he claims to know. The fortune teller coolly replies that he doesn't know anything yet because he hasn't read the fortune yet. The detective feels angry, thinking he's mocking them, and orders him to leave at once. He turns away in annoyance to return to the building, completely ignoring him. A luxury black car suddenly stops in front of the building with a loud screech of brakes. A woman with a terrified expression gets out and rushes toward the police for help. She falls to her knees, breaking down and begging the detectives for any new news. She grabs the detective's jacket, pleading through tears to tell her if they found her daughter. He sympathizes with her tragic situation and asks her to stand up so he can calm her down. He explains that the search teams are currently examining surveillance cameras carefully. He helps her up, confirming that the entire second team is combing the streets for the child. He promises they will contact her as soon as they find any lead or information. The husband intervenes angrily, shouting at the detectives and reminding them that 48 hours have passed. He blames them for missing the golden time for the search that they had set themselves. He explains with heartbreak that the chance of finding her alive is fading by the minute. He asks in a breakdown why they've failed to find any evidence so far. The fortune teller joins the conversation, offering help and asking one of them to draw a tarot card. The detective gets furious and shouts in his face, telling him to be quiet and not interfere. The father rushes toward the fortune teller. He emotionally challenges him to use his abilities to find his missing daughter's location. The detective tries to push him away and calm him, insisting this young man is just a fraud. He resists the police, considering the fortune teller his last hope since they failed their mission. He offers the fortune teller any amount he wants to guide them to her. The fortune teller calmly refuses the money and asks him to cut the cards and draw one with his left hand. The father draws a tarot card showing 3 swords crossed in front of a blue moon. The fortune teller reads the drawn card and finds it to be the 3 of swords reversed, which means pain is fading. He focuses as his internal system tells him the suffering is about to end. The system begins analyzing the environmental features surrounding the missing child. It detects high humidity and the sound of clashing metal where she is. It adds to its data the presence of volatile chemical smells in the surrounding atmosphere. The fortune teller reassures everyone that the child is still alive. The mother collapses on the ground and cries with joy after hearing the good news. He speaks directly to the police, telling them the child is in the northern part of the city. He adds that the place she's in is near a body of water. He points out that the area around her looks deserted and very wide. He confirms that the sound of ringing bells can be heard clearly in that area. It turns out the description fits a deserted port or shipping dock full of cranes. A massive clock tower appears in the area, making loud ringing sounds. The fortune teller surprises the police and the mother by saying the kidnapper is someone they know well. He explains that the kidnapper reeks of a very strong paint smell. He clarifies that this isn't fresh paint, but an old, deep-seated smell. He confirms that this smell stuck to him because he's constantly in a paint-filled environment. He asks the mother to think of someone she knows who fits this description. The husband realizes in shock that the description fits a person named Old Lou. The wife remembers that this person is a renovation contractor they argued with earlier over his fee. She adds that he made threats and said harsh words during their last fight. The father confirms that this contractor came to their house that day to pick up his tools. He clearly remembers that the smell of paint was coming off him strongly. The detective orders his men over the phone to immediately investigate contractor Liu Jianmin. He demands his geographic location be tracked as quickly as possible. Police cars rush off to search, while the fortune teller remains sitting calmly. He watches his mug as the system informs him of his mission progress. He drinks from his mug with relief after successfully completing a third of his daily mission. The cars return to the building quickly after an hour has passed. The mother hugs her infant daughter with tears of joy after her rescue, amid the care of nurses and the fortune teller's gaze. The detective approaches the fortune teller to tell him the kidnapper was successfully arrested. He confirms they found him in the exact place he described. He responds humbly, pointing out that the credit for the rescue goes to the police's efforts. He adds that he is nothing more than a simple fortune teller. The detective rejects this modesty and tells him to stop downplaying his abilities. The detective accuses the fortune teller of having prior knowledge of the kidnapping case details. He warns him that withholding information in a criminal case is a crime. He adds that obtaining this information through illegal means is punishable by law. He sternly confirms that both cases would hold him criminally liable. The fortune teller defends himself, asking indignantly if he had hidden any information from them. A white jeep rushes to the scene, interrupting their conversation. A female forensic doctor rushes out of the building, calling for the detective nicknamed Commander Zhao. She tells him that the DNA results for the body found in the river have finally come out. She confirms with regret that no match for the body's data was found in the criminal database. The detective expresses deep frustration at the lack of a match to identify the victim. He asks about the list of missing men that was previously filtered for a possible match. The doctor strongly denies any match with anyone from the list of missing males. She explains that the body's skeleton is notably large. She adds that despite the damage and missing parts of the pelvic bones, the remaining anatomical angles strongly suggest the body belongs to a male. She reiterates that they excluded all missing males because they didn't match the evidence. She holds the investigation file in her hands, completely puzzled by this medical mystery. The fortune teller suddenly intervenes with a confident voice, confirming the body doesn't belong to a man at all. The doctor and the detective are surprised by his interference and ask if he means the body is female, The fortune teller points out that their investigation and search path are completely wrong. He adds that it's natural they didn't find a match because they're looking in the wrong direction. The forensic doctor looks at the fortune teller with doubt and suspicion for interfering in her work. She sternly tells him that what they do is forensic scientific analysis that doesn't accept guesswork. She explains in detail the scientific angles between the third lumbar vertebra and the pelvic fragments. She confidently confirms that all those measurements match male characteristics perfectly. The fortune teller offers her to draw a tarot card to prove he's right and solve the mystery of the body. She draws a card to find the Temperance Empress in a variable version. The card points to the illusion of abundance through a drawing of a pregnant empress with a split belly. The fortune teller system analyzes the body, pointing to long-term consumption of external male hormones. The fortune teller explains that the victim had been taking male hormones continuously for years. He explains that this consumption led to secondary bone growth and skeletal enlargement. The fortune teller shocks everyone when he tells them the victim was actually a professional athlete. He identifies her specialty with extreme precision, noting she practiced throwing track and field sports. He continues his analysis of the Empress card's symbolism, which represents motherhood. He reveals a tragic detail. She had an abortion just before her murder. He raises another possibility, that she might have just given birth before the crime occurred. The doctor objects in astonishment, saying this is impossible since the body's uterus is entirely missing. She wonders in disbelief how he deduced these precise details without a medical exam. The fortune teller answers calmly, asking her to re-examine the pubic symphysis surface of the body. He guides her precisely to look at the dorsal side of that specific bone area. He explains that if she finds a depression or an old cavity in that bone spot, then that depression is conclusive evidence of an old injury during childbirth. He adds that if there are fresh and clear tear marks in the same place, then this confirms she had a very recent abortion right before her death. The doctor is convinced by the fortune teller's logic and asks the detective for permission to return to the morgue to re-examine. The detective looks sharply at the fortune teller, threatening him if his claims are wrong. He vows that he won't let him leave all night if he's lying. The latter maintains his composure and holds out the tarot cards, asking the detective to draw one. The fortune teller sees a message from his system confirming he's finished 2/3 of his mission after reading for the doctor. He speaks directly to Commander Zhao in a tone full of confidence. Zhao responds with annoyance, asking what the fortune teller wants from him now. The latter tells him he will give him the last remaining reading for today for free. He spreads his cards on the table and offers the detective to read the problem troubling his heart. The detective mockingly denies having any complex or problem on his mind. The fortune teller smiles calmly, confirming that every human has secrets hidden in their depths. The fortune teller hints, while looking at his phone, that everyone hides secrets, especially police officers. The scene shows a building with a clock nearing midnight, where the doctor confirms his predictions are correct. She looks out the window, confirming clear damage marks on the pubic symphysis area of the body. She adds that precise tests showed traces of testosterone in the samples. Shock appears on Commander Zhao's face when he realizes the victim was indeed a woman. The doctor continues, explaining she found missing records of a student from a sports school. She shows that the records belong to a shot-put athlete who disappeared 3 months ago. She excitedly confirms that the investigation path is now in the right direction. Commander Zhao seriously concludes that they are now dealing with 2 separate cases. He explains that the first is a kidnapping incident. He points out that the second is a murder crime. The commander admits that the young man sitting outside was right in all his predictions with extreme accuracy. Zhao looks at his watch, which is nearing 1 a.m., and his gaze changes to become firmer. The fortune teller reminds the commander that he has 5 minutes left if he wants to uncover the secret of his knot. He calmly invites him to come forward and know his fortune. The scene is cut by a white car driving at insane speeds down the street. It crashes violently and flies into the air near where the fortune teller and the commander are sitting. Commander Zhao immediately screams, ordering the rescue of those injured in the horrific accident. Police officers rush with fire extinguishers toward the overturned and burning car. The fortune teller screams, warning the commander strictly against approaching the left side of the car. He explains to him that the fuel tank is on the left and is about to explode. An officer appears trying to put out the fire while bullet holes are clear on the car door. A massive, sudden explosion happens, blowing away the officer who was standing near it. He flies through the air, affected by the force of the horrific explosion. The officer is shown sitting on the ground, in pain from his injury, while the rest continue putting out the fire. The ambulance arrives to transport the injured from the accident site. Zhao directs his gaze toward the fortune teller, his way of thinking about him having completely changed. The commander realizes deep down that this young man isn't just a fraud as he had thought. The fortune teller begins shuffling the tarot cards as the clock nears the end of the set time. The commander looks at the fortune teller as if he were a mysterious entity beyond human understanding. Zhao finally agrees to the experience and asks to draw a card to know his fortune. The commander draws a card from the deck and shows it to the fortune teller to interpret. The drawn card represents the symbol of justice reversed. The fortune teller's internal system translates this card as meaning distorted justice. The card also points to deep internal corruption. The system begins extracting basic information regarding the secret commander Zhao is hiding. The fortune teller shocks the commander by saying his firearm is missing exactly 1 bullet. The fortune teller brings up an old anti-drug case from 3 years ago. He adds that his undercover informant was killed in cold blood during GEU operation. The fortune teller explains that the commander believed all along that drug dealers exposed the informant. But the fortune teller confirms to him that the tarot cards hide a completely different truth. The commander asks with extreme tension and anxiety about the true meaning behind these words. The fortune teller points his finger, confirming that the person who leaked the secret information, and is the same person who fired the fatal shot, is currently present inside this building they are standing in front of. The fortune teller stresses that the traitor is hiding very close to the commander. He adds decisive proof that the traitor's gun is still missing that specific bullet to this day. The fortune teller's internal system announces the host's success in his mission, where he helped uncover the threads of a major serial case. He also managed to save a police officer's life from certain death. The system gives a perfect and complete rating for his performance in this mission. Reward details show an 8% decrease in the diseased cells within his body. The reward also includes an increase in his lifespan by 60 days and 2 million yuan in cash. The fortune teller receives a bank message on his phone confirming the deposit of the massive amount. The fortune teller lies on his sofa at home to rest, but he is surprised by a new mission notification. He reads the mission details requiring him to go to an international bilingual kindergarten. The system sets the location precisely in front of the main gate of Chunting Kindergarten. The system stipulates that he use the bone palpation method to test and predict children's talents and futures. The challenge aims to receive 3 clients and provide flawless, accurate readings. The system requires total success with the 3 clients to pass the mission. The fortune teller wonders at the system's choice of a kindergarten as the site for his new mission. He realizes that this kindergarten is considered the most prestigious private educational institution in the city. He remembers that the annual tuition fees there are exorbitant. He concludes that the children enrolled there come from powerful and wealthy families. He is certain that the system is intentionally raising the difficulty level in its consecutive missions. The fortune teller reflects on the generous reward he just received from his previous mission. He remembers sadly that his remaining life doesn't exceed 4 months. He thinks about the dire consequences if he decides to stop executing these missions. He knows well that the cancer cells in his body won't give him more time. The fortune teller goes the next day to find himself surrounded by luxury cars in front of the kindergarten gate. He puts up his cardboard sign offering talent and future prediction services for children. 2 security guards carrying batons approach the main gate. One of them questions the fortune teller in a sharp tone about why he's there and sitting in that spot. He answers with a calm smile that he is just a street vendor offering his services. The guard shouts in his face, reminding him that this is a private educational institution. He sternly confirms that offering any services in front of the gate is strictly forbidden. He threatens to take strict measures if he doesn't pack his things and leave immediately. The fortune teller points with his feet to a red line drawn on the ground, explaining he's standing on the city's public sidewalk. He explains to him that the kindergarten's private boundaries start from the nearby stairs, not the sidewalk. He insists with complete confidence that he hasn't crossed the legal boundaries of private property. The guard rejects his justifications, considering his presence unacceptable regardless of the lines. The guard argues that his appearance and sitting there ruin the general look of the street. The fortune teller defends himself, saying he's not causing any blockage for emergency routes or fire lanes. The fortune teller takes out his smartphone, directing a warning to the guard in case he tries to use violence, threatening him that he will file a formal complaint against him for using excessive force. He adds that he won't hesitate to document and post the clip on social media. The guard backs off a bit after this threat and orders him to stay as far as possible from the gate. He stresses that he must not obstruct the movement of parents coming to pick up their children. An elegant lady wearing a red dress and holding her child's hand approaches to be his first customer. The lady asks curiously what the fortune teller can read or predict for her child's future. The fortune teller calmly explains that he can read the future and identify talents. He adds that the fee for the examination is left to the customer's discretion. The lady is surprised at how cheap and easy the service is. She pushes her small child toward him, asking him to check his abilities. She expresses her desire to know if he is qualified to enter Harvard University in the future. She wonders if his academic future lies in Yale instead. She brags that her family is already preparing for his prestigious university future. She explains they've set up a massive fund specifically for elite universities. The child gets angry, rejecting this talk and screaming that he wants to eat meat. The fortune teller grabs his wrist to activate his bone reading system. He tells the lady with a smile that Harvard and Yale are completely out of the question for her child. Signs of disappointment and extreme frustration appear on her face after hearing this prediction. She objects to his words, considering his judgment final and exaggerated. She defends her child, noting that despite his greed and love for food, he is extremely and noticeably intelligent. She claims the piano teacher praised the size and strength of his hands while playing. He asks her seriously if she really wants to hear the naked truth. She responds with anger and emotion, confirming her prior awareness of the difficulty of him getting into Harvard. He points his hand, explaining that a top culinary school is the most suitable place for him. He confirms that he will be an outstanding student and a genius in the field of cooking, without a doubt. She becomes furious amidst the laughter of bystanders, accusing him of talking nonsense. She shouts, asking if he realizes the massive amounts she spends on his education and upbringing annually. She lists his expensive lessons, including piano, horse riding, and golf. She points out that the cost of his private tutors alone exceeds 2 million yuan a year. She expresses her extreme anger and insult at him describing her son as just a cook. He explains that financial spending has absolutely nothing to do with where true talent lies. He explains that his wrist bones, though covered in a layer of fat, upon careful examination and deep palpation, turn out to be much wider and stronger than average people. He adds that his finger joints have exceptional and rare flexibility. He explains that this skeletal structure is known in ancient times as pulling and hammering hands, signifying skill. She is impressed by this ancient term, believing it signifies great importance and high status. He smiles, confirming that this physical makeup is indeed amazing and unique. He shocks her by explaining that this build is considered an innate and perfect talent for tossing a wok professionally. He continues, describing the child's fingers as thick and short, which enhances his control. He notes that his palms are thick and naturally resistant to high heat. He confirms that these traits give him a precise and perfect ability to control temperatures. He directs his question to the child, asking if he really enjoys playing the piano as his mother says. The little one screams angrily that he hates it, and its sound seems hideous and annoying to him. He complains about the extreme annoyance caused by his teacher's metronome. The mother scolds her child angrily, trying to silence him from revealing these embarrassing facts. She reminds him that he played a song for his grandmother yesterday quite well. He admits innocently that he only did it to trick her into buying him a fast food meal. He clenches his fists emotionally and directs his angry shouting toward his shocked mother. He complains loudly about the bad taste of the food she cooks for him herself. He confirms that her food lacks flavors and only contains a sharp, salty taste. He highly praises the delicious taste of the cooked meat prepared by the maid at home. He describes precisely how she puts a large piece of yellow rock sugar in the pot to balance the flavor. He completes his description of the cooking process by mentioning her pouring dark soy sauce to enhance color and taste. The fortune teller explains seriously that his taste buds exceed average people's sensitivity by 10 times. He confirms that he possesses a unique, divine innate gift for analyzing and tasting flavors precisely. He adds, warning that forcing him to learn the piano is a complete destruction of the future of a promising 3-star Michelin chef. The mother is totally stunned upon hearing his description of her son's bright future in cooking. She hesitates for a moment, looking at the money in her hand, then at her son and the fortune teller in confusion. She throws the banknotes on the latter's mat in surrender, acknowledging her defeat. She directs her words to him in a sharp tone, admitting the cruelty of his merciless honesty. She gives in to reality and tells her son that if he really wants to cook, she agrees to let him learn how to prepare the delicious chicken dishes he loves. Parents gather around the fortune teller, impressed, asking him to examine their children immediately. One mother complains that her son is always distracted and daydreaming, begging for help. The wealthy man who appeared earlier intervenes, arrogantly announcing he is the second customer and has his daughter with him. He claims that what the fortune teller did with the first child isn't a real skill worthy of praise. He justifies this by saying the little fat boy's appearance directly suggests his love for food and cooking. He adds mockingly that anyone could have guessed this obvious result easily. The fortune teller ignores his belittlement and asks him calmly and confidently what exactly he wants to know. The man answers that he came to test his abilities and see if he possesses true, impressive insight. He notes that everyone describes him as a miracle and spreads news of him like a legend. He confirms his desire to know if he can dive into the depths and see the naked truth. He introduces his quiet daughter to the bystanders, calling her Lin Xiaoman. He brags loudly that she is the officially recognized genius girl in the entire school. He recounts her achievements, saying she memorized hundreds of complex classic poems at age 3. He adds that she mastered complex mental arithmetic with superior skill at age 5. He explains that she is currently teaching herself the foundations of advanced calculus. The bystanders are deeply amazed, and their voices of admiration rise at a small child's ability to study it. Someone wonders in amazement and awe if this is the legendary genius they talk about. The man asks the fortune teller to examine her bones to prove his alleged skill in front of everyone. He asks mockingly and boastfully if she is a new reincarnation of Einstein, or perhaps a new and improved birth of Marie Curie. The fortune teller calmly places his hand on the little girl's head to begin his precise examination. The system analyzes her brain and bones to discover a developmental delay due to malnutrition and excessive pressure. It shows that the logic area in her brain is inactive, and that she relies on mechanical memory and lives in a state of psychological terror and morbidly pleasing others. He evaluates her talent as completely fake and just a high capacity for rote memorization caused by intimidation. He realizes sadly that she isn't a genius but was forcibly turned into a memorization machine by her parents. The man wonders arrogantly why he's silent and unable to speak after the exam. He mocks him, asking if he was unable to grasp the quality of these rare bones. He shocks him and the bystanders by directly and flatly stating she isn't a genius at all. He adds, with a sharp look directed at the boastful father, that she is just a skilled actress playing a role forced upon her cruelly. Gasps of shock and amazement rise from him and all bystanders at his shocking and unexpected statement. The little girl looks up, her eyes overflowing with a mix of surprise at being found out. The dad asks his little girl to start reciting poetry in front of him. He pushes her to do a super complex classical poem just to show off her skills. She starts reciting it with a fake smile, non-stop. She keeps going with crazy smoothness and perfect memorization. She continues rattling off the long verses under his proud gaze. She finishes another part with insane precision. Suddenly, the fortune teller interrupts her, putting his finger on her forehead to shut her up. He tells the dad that she doesn't actually understand a word she's saying. He explains she's just memorizing sounds and repeating them mechanically in her head. He compares her brain to a recording machine that just repeats what it's fed without any consciousness. The dad gets annoyed and asks what's wrong with her having this talent. He defends her, saying her memory alone is a gift. The fortune teller agrees it's a gift, but asks about the heavy price she's paying for it. He tells him to look closely at her fingers. He reveals scars and bite marks on them as solid proof of her extreme anxiety. Then he adds another note about the bone structure at the back of her head. He points out that the flat back of her head and her brow bone reflect a specific mental state. He concludes that kids with this bone structure are suffering inside. He explains these signs show she's ultra-sensitive and deals with massive self-doubt. He adds that she has an obsessive, desperate need for validation from others at any cost. He tells her he was watching the way she looked at her dad earlier. He flat out tells her he didn't see any love in her eyes for him. He insists all he saw in her gaze was pure terror and fear. He confronts her with the truth. She's scared to sleep because she's terrified of messing up a single word. She starts crying as he keeps exposing her fear of failing any test. He explains her terror comes from the fear of being locked in a windowless study room as punishment. She breaks down crying, while the dad screams at the fortune teller, accusing him of talking nonsense. The angry man threatens to call the cops and get him arrested for talking to her. He grabs her arm roughly, trying to drag her away. He tells her not to listen to this lunatic's garbage. She loses it, screaming and crying hysterically. She collapses on the ground, completely broken, while her dad and everyone around stand there shocked. She keeps sobbing bitterly, mumbling random lines from the poem in the middle of her breakdown. She continues wailing, repeating fragments of the forced memorization she was put through. She stays slumped on the ground in a total mental collapse. The hysteria and non-stop crying continue while everyone is stunned. She screams, refusing to be forced to memorize ever again. She begs her dad through her tears not to hit her. He steps back, shocked and embarrassed in front of the crowd, denying he ever did that. The fortune teller advises the stunned dad to take her to a psychiatrist ASAP. He tells him medical help now might save her before it's too late. He warns him that if he waits 2 more years, she'll get much worse. He explains that constant pressure will lead to an irreversible mental and psychological breakdown. He adds that the girl will lose her so-called genius entirely. He confirms she'll turn into a high IQ sociopath. She keeps screaming on the ground, refusing to memorize, while he stands there helpless. He hugs her crying and apologizes after realizing how badly he messed up. He picks her up and leaves. The fortune teller gets a notification from his system saying he completed 2 out of 3 correct readings. A luxury car pulls up announcing a big-shot new client. An old lady, looking rich and dignified, steps out. People whisper that she's the 3rd client and the head of the Shin Group. His system scans her and finds she has an aura of power and authority. She smiles and asks if he has one last reading left. He answers calmly, confirming he has one final shot. He asks what she wants to know. She introduces her young grandson and asks if he's capable of taking over the family business in the future. She wants to know if he's worthy of keeping her empire alive. He tells her he needs to check the kid's bone structure to give an answer. The police step in to stop him, questioning his intentions. The lady raises her hand, ordering them to let him do his job. He gently places his hand on the boy's head to start the exam. His eyes glow red, signaling his system's exploration skills are active. The system tells him the skull is flat, meaning a total lack of competence. The scan continues, showing no leadership signs and zero sense of responsibility, but a huge spender trait. His overall fate is labeled as a top-tier wealth squanderer. He moves to check his palm and classifies him as a top-tier passionate explorer. He gives the final result, confirming the grandson will be the main reason the family fortune gets destroyed. The fortune teller looks seriously at the old lady, getting ready to tell her the truth. He confidently tells her grandson is not fit to lead her business. Her expression turns to anger, demanding a logical reason for his judgment. He points to the boy's hand and tells her to look closely. He explains his fingers are long while his palm is thin and flat. He shows her that when he closes it, a stiff piece of paper could easily slide through the gaps. He explains this physical trait is known in physiognomy as the wealth-leaking hand. He uses an old proverb saying his hand is like water passing through without leaving a trace. He adds another saying, gold will pass through his hands without making a sound. He then points to a specific spot on the kid's forehead. He notes the bones there are clearly prominent and high. He adds that the color looks exceptionally shiny. He explains these signs prove he has a free spirit that can't be suppressed or caged. The fortune teller predicts he won't be able to settle down in this city in the future. He insists it'll be impossible for him to stay trapped in offices. He warns her against forcing him to take over her massive wealth. He adds that making him sit in a chairman's office signing contracts would be a huge mistake. He predicts that in less than 10 years of taking the position, he'll sell the entire group just to get rid of its chains. He explains, as she stands there shocked, that he might sell it just to buy a ticket for a ship to travel the world. Or maybe just to satisfy a random wish to go to the South Pole to see penguins. The old lady stands there in horror, imagining him hawking her companies for a toy. The old lady asks the fortune teller in shock what he really means. She's furious, denying that her family's only grandson would destroy their fortune. He answers calmly, explaining that wasting wealth is relative. He adds her grandson would be a failure in the business world, but he points out that things might be totally different in other fields. She asks with curiosity and interest what kind of fields he'd succeed in. He surprises her by saying the fields that suit him are the ones that involve spending lots of money. He justifies this by saying the kid has a natural sensitivity to anything new and innovative. He continues that the boy is filled with a huge desire and curiosity to discover the unknown. He suggests with a smile that if her family's wealth is enough for generations and never runs out, then letting him spend it on his explorations could be seen as a good deed that brings luck. He confidently asserts that this child is destined to be a top-class explorer. The grandma looks at her grandson affectionately after hearing this analysis. She gently asks him if he really wants to be the chairman. The boy asks innocently if being chairman would let him go hunt lions. She answers with a heavy heart that the position wouldn't let him do that. He firmly declares that he doesn't want the job at all. He shouts excitedly about his dream to travel to Africa. He adds passionately that he also dreams of exploring Antarctica. He keeps listing his bold dreams, announcing his ambition to go to Mars. He grumbles about how bored he is inside the kindergarten he hates. He expresses his frustration with being forced to memorize and recite lessons daily. The grandma smiles with acceptance, repeating the fortune teller's description of her grandson as a wealth spender. She laughs out loud, fully accepting the boy's nature for spending and adventure. She speaks proudly of the financial empire her family built over 3 generations. She confidently says this massive fortune can definitely handle her grandson's expenses, no matter what. She adds that their decades of hard work would be meaningless if they didn't make this child happy. The grandma praises the young fortune teller's courage, noting he's the first person brave enough to tell her the truth. She adds he's the only one who dared to call her grandson a wealth waster to her face. She waves her hand generously, ordering her bodyguard to give him a big reward. The guard pulls out an exclusive black card to give to the young man. He hands him the card, passing on the grandma's message that her family name will protect him in the future. The fortune teller sits calmly and starts folding his banner. He shocks everyone by flat-out refusing the valuable bank card. The young man smiles while packing his bag, clearly stating his working hours for today are over. The grandma is baffled that he'd reject such a huge amount of money. He walks away with steady steps, explaining he finished his 3 readings and won't do more. He strictly says his time is up and he won't provide any more services. He explains that taking extra money could bring karmic consequences he doesn't need. He waves goodbye, pointing out that getting too involved with big money is risky. He concludes by saying he can't handle the burden of that extra interference with fate. The old lady leans down to pick up her card, looking at the fortune teller with admiration for his integrity. She smiles and whispers to herself that this mysterious guy really interests her. The fortune teller goes home to eat and finds out on his phone that he's gone viral on the internet. He reads the articles calling him a legendary master after videos of him refusing the money spread. His shock is interrupted by his phone ringing. It's Detective Zhao, whom he met before. The detective warns him over the phone and tells him not to wander around these days. He tells him top police officials are looking for him, asking about his identity and powers. He adds that the wealthy Shin family is also using their influence to search for him everywhere. The fortune teller responds seriously, insisting he hasn't broken any laws. The detective reassures him he knows he's innocent and the search isn't for a crime. He breaks the good news that the fortune teller's warning helped save a young officer's leg from amputation. He offers full support and tells him to call immediately if he runs into any trouble. After the call, the fortune teller gets a new task notification from his system. He reads the details. He needs to go to the morning antique market to evaluate treasures. The system sets the time strictly between 9 and 11 a.m. It requires him to use written word analysis for his readings this time. As usual, he needs to take 3 clients and give accurate readings to pass. The system adds a key condition. He must successfully expose fakes or prove authenticity. He gets up the next morning and starts getting dressed for the new mission. He smiles at himself in the mirror, excited about finding rare treasures in the market. He arrives at exactly 9 a.m. at the crowded market and sets up his spot. He spreads his blue cloth on the stone floor near the market's east gate. He puts up a sign saying he'll evaluate antiques for free if his reading is wrong. He notices the market is full of old-timers carrying traditional walnuts. He also spots several content creators walking around with cameras. The owner of the next stall, a bald guy, starts mocking him, hinting he's in the wrong place. He sarcastically advises him to go look for a real job instead of wasting time here. The fortune teller answers calmly, confirming he knows exactly where he is. He adds he didn't get lost. He came on purpose to make some extra cash with his skills. The old seller, Wang, bursts out laughing after hearing the confident reply. He brags about his 20 years in the antique business. He questions how someone could claim to evaluate antiques through word analysis. He thinks to himself that this kid is either clueless about the market or he's a bold scammer who came to mess with other sellers. The fortune teller defends his way, explaining this field relies on insight and a sharp eye. The seller mocks the idea that analyzing lines could replace real visual experience. The fortune teller smiles confidently, questioning how accurate the seller's expert eye really is. He shocks the seller by revealing that the pile of antique coins on his stall are laser-engraved fakes. Shock shows on Wang's face when the fortune teller insists no real expert would buy his fake junk. Half an hour passes while the fortune teller sits waiting for his first client. He notices with some frustration that passers-by are totally ignoring his stall. He realizes people here only trust traditional experts with magnifying glasses. He concludes they won't trust a guy who looks like an unemployed programmer. Things finally change when a guy in his early 20s approaches cautiously. He's clutching a bundle wrapped in newspaper like it's something super precious. He approaches the stall with hesitant steps, looking around suspiciously. He whispers to the fortune teller that he found a rare Ming Dynasty bowl at a nearby stall. He writes a word on the newspaper, saying he bought it for $5,000 and thinks it's worth over $50,000. Old Wang watches curiously, trying to see what happens with this client. The old man looks at the supposed antique with contempt. He pulls his head back quickly after losing interest. He smiles sarcastically, realizing it's a common fake. He thinks to himself that these replicas are everywhere. The fortune teller ignores the bowl completely. He focuses all his attention on the word treasure, the guy wrote. He starts his analysis by pointing to the top part of the word. Then he focuses on the bottom part, which represents the jade symbol. He notes the top of the word was written way too wide. He points out this width overwhelmed the jade symbol below. He concludes this piece isn't from any valuable official kilns. He adds it's not even a decent folk kiln piece. He explains it was made in a tiny, irrelevant family workshop. The fortune teller directs the guy's attention back to the bottom of the word. He points out the dot inside the jade symbol was drawn with way too much pressure. He explains this pressure caused the ink to smudge and spread. He interprets that the jade symbol in the word metaphorically represents the bowl's base. He links his observation to the mark at the bottom of the bowl. He reveals the shocking truth. The mark is fake, made from jade powder mixed with glue. The guy protests in shock, insisting he checked the bottom mark himself. He insists the mark pointed to the precious Chenghua period of the Ming Dynasty. He adds the writing was clear and the engraving was perfect. He points out signs of natural wear and tear that suggest age. The fortune teller calmly explains the clear engraving is because it's brand new. As for the wear and tear, it's fake and was done with sandpaper. The guy gets furious and accuses him of lying, asking how he can judge it without touching it. The fortune teller smiles confidently and dares the guy to break the bowl to prove him right. He offers a big bet. He'll pay $100,000 if he's wrong. Then he explains what will happen if it turns out to be fake. He predicts that when broken, a layer of glue will show on the inner edges. He suggests an alternative test, using a lighter to heat the base and reveal the truth. The guy hesitates for a second, then pulls out a lighter. As soon as he heats the base, the fake mark melts away to reveal modern writing saying, "Microwave safe." He drops the bowl in total shock. The piece shatters, and the glue layer is clear on the broken parts. The crowd is amazed at his ability to spot a fake without touching it. They wonder how he figured out the base was glued just by analyzing a written word. The onlookers realize this isn't just a normal fortune-telling session. They believe this guy has supernatural insight or a heavenly eye. A huge crowd gathers around the young fortune-teller's stall. Everyone looks at him with intense curiosity and massive surprise. Everyone wonders what else this mysterious guy has up his sleeve. An elegant old man carrying a carved wooden box steps forward as the second client. He carefully places the box in front of the fortune teller. He tells him he wants to test his abilities. He mentions the bowl incident from earlier. He downplays it, saying exposing that fake bowl wasn't that hard, but he insists the painting he has is a real challenge. He explains that many big auction houses disagreed on its value, then writes the word painting. The old man looks serious and excited as he waits for the evaluation. The fortune teller asks if he's really ready to hear the whole truth without sugarcoating. The old man confidently says he only wants the truth. The fortune teller stops him from opening the box, saying there's no need to see the painting. He starts his analysis by pointing out that the field symbol is in the middle of the word painting. He notes the borders of this field are drawn clearly and precisely. Then he moves to the outer lines surrounding the field symbol. He points out a difference in ink tone between the inner and outer lines. He concludes the brush pressure and momentum seem disconnected. He tells him the heart of the painting, the central part, is actually original, but he adds that the inscriptions and seals on the edges are fake. He adds the outer frame and the mounting paper aren't original to the painting. He reveals they were cut from other paintings and pasted around the original part. He explains this trick is known in the antique world as reviving the soul in a borrowed body. The old man admits he spent a whole week checking it without a final decision. He adds with regret that many experts told him it was fully original, but he always felt the calligraphy style didn't match the painting style. He realizes now his doubts were right and it's a Frankenstein piece. He looks at the fortune teller with tears in his eyes, expressing his gratitude. He says if he hadn't exposed the truth, he would have lost millions, then hands him a red envelope as a reward. He bows deeply to him out of respect and huge gratitude. This incident fires up the crowd, and everyone rushes forward to get their stuff evaluated. In the middle of the push, a poor-looking old man is shoved forward against his will. He falls to his knees in front of the stall, becoming the third client by accident. People mock him and tell him to get out of the way. Some laugh, telling him not to block their path or ruin their business. The young fortune teller steps in and tells everyone to wait. Then he curiously asks the old man what's in the bag he's carrying. The man nervously answers, "It's nothing valuable." He explains it's just a chunk of iron he found at a construction site near the river. He adds it's heavy and he was going to sell it as scrap for food money. The fortune teller calmly insists on seeing the piece. When the man pulls out the muddy chunk, people laugh and tell him to write a word for the fortune teller. The old man sadly admits he can't read or write. He adds that the only word he knows how to write is iron. He explains he learned it because he used to be a porter at an old iron factory. He grabs the brush and slowly writes the word iron on the paper. After looking at the word, the fortune teller shocks everyone by giving a red envelope to the old man, saying he won't take money but will give it instead. He gives him the money saying, "Here's your medallion," as a symbolic reward. The old man looks at the envelope in total shock, unable to believe what's happening. The fortune teller starts analyzing the word iron the old man wrote. He explains the right side of it symbols loss or disappearance. Then he points out the left side means gold or precious metal. He interprets the metaphorical meaning as loss of the original golden shine. He concludes that only after this outer layer is gone, its true essence shows. He tells him directly that what he's carrying isn't just scrap metal. He reveals it's an antique from the Tang dynasty, used to protect a certain place. He identifies it specifically as the foot of one of the massive iron bulls used to prevent Yellow River floods. He points to the engravings and lines on the broken part. He points to the remaining ancient inscriptions on its surface as extra proof. He finally confirms it's a priceless national treasure. The crowd laughs out loud, thinking he's lost his mind. He strongly advises the old man never to sell it to a scrapyard. He guides him to a museum office just 200 meters away. He tells him to say he found it at an archaeological site by the old riverbed. The old man asks with tears in his eyes if this is really true. The fortune teller gives him the money he got earlier to take a taxi. He reassures him the state will give him a certificate of honor after handing it over. He adds he'll also get a huge cash reward. He insists that reward will be enough for his retirement. The man rushes off clutching his treasure. The fortune teller starts packing up after finishing his mission. Suddenly, an urgent announcement blares over the market speakers. It asks the old man carrying the black piece to go immediately to the market management office. The announcement repeats to emphasize how important it is. The crowd is stunned to hear it's a grade A national antique. They realize it's a key clue in a major case. At home, the fortune teller finds his rewards have reached 5 million. Huge sums of money show up on his computer screen. He remembers his hard days and smiles with relief. Heading out of his apartment, he's surprised to find Detective Zhao waiting. Zhao is standing in the hallway. The fortune teller asks in surprise how he found him. The detective says he wasn't hiding on purpose, so it was easy. He adds checking rental records was no big deal. He enters the apartment carrying a bag of apples. The fortune teller asks why the sudden visit. The detective says his little sister, Zhao Xiaoya, has been acting weird lately. He explains he took her to the hospital for a CT scan. He adds they did an MRI and full blood tests too, but all results showed nothing physically wrong. He notes she always claims someone is talking to her. The fortune teller corrects him, saying it's not just auditory hallucinations. The detective explains she says she always goes to the same place in her dreams. She describes it as pitch black, and she hears a scratching sound coming from behind a wall. She describes it like the rustling of sand. Weirdest part is, when she wakes up, her nails are full of dust. The fortune teller suggests seeing a psychiatrist or a mental health expert. The detective says he already did, and she's now in a psychiatric hospital. He adds sadly that doctors diagnosed her with severe schizophrenia. They prescribed meds that didn't work. He mentions he visited her yesterday. She grabbed his hand and terrifiedly told him that person was about to come out. He admits he knows the fortune teller has special powers. He says he witnessed the 2 previous cases he solved. He begs him to go see his sister. The fortune teller hesitates since his system didn't give a task and he's scared the reading won't work, but he changes his mind and agrees to go. The detective asks with relief if he's really okay with it. The fortune teller clarifies he can't guarantee he'll see anything. He adds he's just going to see if he can talk to her. Next morning, he arrives at the psychiatric hospital with the detective. As soon as they enter the hospital garden, he gets a new task notification. Details of the new mission show up. The location is set on a bench in the hospital garden. The reading style required is dream interpretation and exposing subconscious truths. The goal is to take 3 patients as clients, and he must accurately analyze their dreams to pass. He sits on a bench and puts up a sign, Dream Interpreter. The first patient approaches holding a black umbrella even though the sky is clear. He asks if he's the new mushroom. He calmly answers, he's not a mushroom. He explains he interprets dreams. The patient says he had another dream last night. The fortune teller asks for details. He says he dreamed he turned into an umbrella. He adds the fabric was torn. Rain was leaking through and the drops were freezing cold. Those cold drops were falling on his body. He feels like they were freezing and breaking his bones. He asks fearfully if this means his death is near. The system analyzes the symbols, interpreting the torn umbrella as loss of protection and the cold rain as a hostile environment. He reassures him he won't die and his body isn't broken. He interprets the coldness as the absence of the person who used to carry and protect him. He tells him he's waiting for that person to fix his torn umbrella, but he confronts him with the truth. He knows deep down that person is never coming back. The patient breaks down crying at those words. He whispers one word full of grief, Mom. The patient admits through tears that he misses her. He adds with regret he wished he could have held the umbrella for her just once. The fortune teller comforts him, saying crying will make him feel better. He reminds him the umbrella is still in his hand, and he can protect himself now. Nurses rush to calm the patient during his breakdown. He screams loudly as they try to contain him. The detective's sister, the girl he came for, approaches the bench. She tells him her brother said he has special powers. She asks anxiously if he can hear that sound too. He asks what it is. She says it's the scratching on the wall that won't leave her alone. Her hand is shown scratching the wooden bench involuntarily. Her bloody, dusty nails are shown as she says everyone thinks she's crazy. She adds the doctor said it's just hallucinations, and her brother thinks it's just stress. She's 100% sure what she hears is real. She points out the source is inside the wall itself. She insists someone is scratching from the inside. The detective steps in, saying the apartment next to hers is totally empty. She screams hysterically, denying it and insisting someone is there. She adds fearfully that he counts non-stop. 1, 2, 3. She says he knows when she sleeps and when she wakes up. She says he follows her even in her dreams. She starts laughing hysterically, saying he scratches without stopping. The scene continues with her breaking down, laughing and crying. The fortune teller's eyes glow blue as he activates his analysis. It reveals the sound is indeed nails scratching concrete and shows him a blueprint of a wall with a secret cavity. He calls the detective's name to get his attention. He tells him flat out his sister isn't crazy at all. He confirms the sound she hears is real. The detective asks in shock if he means someone is actually in the next apartment. The fortune teller corrects him, saying the source isn't from the next unit. He explains someone is trapped inside the wall itself. He tells him to check her bedroom wall immediately. He specifies it's the wall between her place and the neighbor's. He reveals there's a cavity or a secret room inside. He confirms something is in that cavity. He adds it's most likely a person. He urges him to move now. No delays. He tells him the trapped person is still alive. He insists the scratching is still going on. The girl cries from relief that someone finally believed her. The detective makes an urgent call, ordering demolition gear to his house. He orders his men to smash that specific bedroom wall. He emphasizes it must be done now. Top speed. The fortune teller waits calmly, checking his watch. The hand moves slowly. He thinks 10 minutes is enough for them to break the wall. A new person approaches, the head of psychiatry at the hospital. The doctor looks at them and the girl on the bench. The dream interpreter sign is visible next to the fortune teller. He smiles, saying the scene looks interesting. He adds he wants in. The detective asks who he is. He introduces himself as Li Wenji, the doctor in charge of Ward 6. He says he just finished his rounds. He tells the fortune teller he doesn't believe in this stuff, but he notes he had a weird dream recently. He adds it's causing him stress and anxiety. He starts telling it, saying he saw himself performing surgery. He notes this is part of his normal daily work. He continues that when he tried to use the scalpel, he was surprised the blade became soft and dull, and no matter how much force he used, it would bend and twist as soon as it touched the patient's skin. He adds he swapped it for another, but it was soft too. The patient was watching him on the table without bleeding. No matter how hard he tried to cut, there was no blood. He describes how he started sweating from pure anxiety. He says he tried to analyze it himself. He thinks it's the huge pressure at work, which led to some kind of job anxiety. He asks the fortune teller to interpret it. The latter looks intensely at the doctor's hands. His hands are tightly interlaced. The fortune teller says it's not about stress. He explains that deep down, he sees the scalpel as a barrier. The doctor asks in confusion what that means. He explains the scalpel is a wall between him and the flesh and blood. He tells him he's sick of touching life through a metal barrier. He adds his subconscious is telling him to get rid of it. He reveals his deep desire to use his hands instead of tools. He continues that he wants to dig his fingers in to feel the warmth, and to feel the pulse, then to crush and destroy it. The doctor laughs sarcastically and says he must be joking. He adds fortune-telling is just made-up stories. He emphasizes his identity as a doctor. He insists his role is only to save lives. The fortune-teller responds with a confident smile, asserting the doctor knows deep down what he said is the truth. The fortune-teller confronts him with the truth. His hands are way too steady. He tells him that this kind of stiffness doesn't belong to a lifesaver. It's more like the hand of an executioner. He advises him to take a long break or just turn himself in. Pure terror and shock wash over the doctor's face. He panics and bolts from the scene. Meanwhile, the detective gets a text about the wall being torn down. On an urgent call, his men confirm they've finally smashed through. He whispers to himself in awe, thinking this is nothing short of a miracle. His men confirm they found a secret cavity right behind his sister's bedroom wall. They explain it was hidden in the construction gap between the buildings. Someone had opened a passage from the rented apartment next door into this space. They add that the inside was lined with soundproofing material. The girl listens in horror, realizing the gap was only half a meter wide. The detective frantically asks about the person inside. His men reassure him they caught him, a fugitive criminal wanted by the law. It turns out the guy had been hiding inside that wall for 6 months. They find the wall was full of tiny peepholes for spying. That scratching she heard nonstop? It was happening right behind her head. The noise was from him covering the camera lens he'd planted in the wall at night. The girl completely breaks down in shock after learning the terrifying truth. Seeing things are settled, the fortune teller decides his work is done and gets ready to leave. Before he goes, she calls out to him, pointing toward the doctor. The detective wonders if Dr. Li Wenjie is involved in something shady too. The fortune teller suggests investigating the doctor's past surgeries, specifically the ones where the patients didn't make it. He tells him to check if the recorded cause of death matches the truth. He adds he should look into missing person cases near the hospital where no bodies were found. The detective looks at him with deep gratitude and thanks him for the help. The fortune teller walks away with steady steps, his role complete. That evening, he gets a text from the detective. The doctor was arrested, and his basement was full of human specimens. He stares at his phone in shock, reading the gruesome details. He decides to head out for dinner at a nearby hot pot spot. He realizes his fame has exploded. He's the talk of the town everywhere. He hears people whispering about the twisted psychiatrist who got caught. They credit the genius fortune teller for exposing him. He finds out the internet has dubbed him Zhang the Half-Immortal. He's surprised to see someone offering a 2 million yuan reward just for his address. He mocks the idea, thinking fame is nothing but trouble. Suddenly, a new system notification pops up. The mission is set at the plaza under the famous Starlight Media Tower. The time is strictly between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. This time, the style is appearance assessment for internet celebrities. He has to rate specific areas: beauty, luck, and career. The goal is to take 3 clients. Each must get a digital rating and a comment. He thinks this is the weirdest task yet. It feels like throwing himself into a pit of fire. He arrives to find himself surrounded by crowds of fans and influencers. He sarcastically thinks about how he's been sent to a mob of people with 100 plastic surgeries, and his job is to judge their beauty and future. He concludes the system is intentionally making people hate him. He moves forward with the mission to see the reality of these stars. He wonders what they really look like without all those filters. He sits at his spot among influencers doing live streams. His strange setup catches the eye of a beautiful woman arriving with bodyguards. She's a top-tier celebrity with tens of millions of followers. She tells him she heard his readings are incredibly accurate. She challenges him to rate her face, showing it to him on her phone. She specifies the rating must be out of 10 points. She asks how many points her beauty deserves as his eyes glow purple. His system does a full analysis of her features. He answers coldly and bluntly, only 2 points. The lady is shocked and furious at the insulting rating. She tries to keep it together, asking if he made a mistake. She mocks the idea, saying the lighting must be too dim. She offers him another chance to reevaluate. She tells him to look closer and study her face. He sarcastically replies that he gave her an extra point just so she wouldn't get too arrogant. He points out that the tip of her nose is tilted and deformed. He reveals she's had jaw-shaving surgery 3 times. He explains her bones can no longer support the flesh on her face. He adds that cosmetic threads are the only things holding her face up now. Then he moves to her marriage palace area. He explains that too many filler injections there have pressed against a nerve. He asks point blank if she's been having migraines lately. Shock and panic flash across her face. He drops another bombshell, revealing her real age is 42. She screams at him, denying it and insisting she's only 18. She angrily claims she's never had surgery, and her beauty is all natural. She turns to her livestream audience asking them to judge for themselves. She calls him a total fraud and a scammer. She screams, asking how she could possibly look 42. He answers calmly that biological age can't be hidden. He reveals she has erosion in her cervical vertebrae. He adds she also has a herniated disc in her lower back. He explains these health issues come from years of sitting and wearing high heels. He notes these conditions take at least 20 years to develop. He concludes sarcastically, asking how a lady in this condition can claim to be 18. He asks her how much longer she plans to pretend she's still 18, and how much longer this deception will go on. He mocks her, saying her 3 kids at home probably won't even recognize her soon because of all the changes. Her fake image shatters, and she flees the scene in a panic. Left alone in the plaza, she becomes everyone's laughingstock. More influencers crowd around him, everyone begging for a rating. Someone shouts that they'll pay for a career prediction. A young guy excitedly asks for his points. He eagerly asks if he'll finally hit the big time. The fortune teller looks at him with pure disdain before speaking. A massive guy steps forward, a famous mukbang influencer, telling his followers they aren't doing an eating challenge today. He adds excitedly that they're trying a fortune reading instead. He challenges the fortune teller, saying if he gets 10 points, he'll chug a whole bottle of white wine in one go. He introduces himself as a Chiang. He boastfully asks if his features mean he'll be rich and successful. He brags about his rapidly growing follower count. He adds that his last live stream pulled in 50,000 in donations. He considers all this a sign of good luck. He jokingly pats his belly, quoting the proverb about a big belly holding greatness. The fortune teller's system scans his body, finding his internal organs in terrible shape. He whispers 2 shocking words: death money. The influencer is confused, thinking he heard house money. He excitedly confirms he's actually planning to buy a house. The fortune teller seriously asks what he had for dinner. He says not much, just 10 pounds of spicy lobster, and 5 pounds of roast pork, plus 2 pounds of pickled crab, topped off with a bottle of strong wine. He jokingly asks if the fortune teller is hungry too. He offers some pork knuckles he has stashed in his car. He offers to go grab them. The fortune teller tells him his rating is a negative number. The influencer laughs, thinking he's got a sense of humor. He sarcastically asks how a rating can even be negative. He answers with total gravity, because you're about to die. The guy explodes in anger, accusing him of cursing him and insisting he's healthy. He smashes the bottle, saying his last checkup only showed a fatty liver. He mocks him, saying everyone has a fatty liver. He screams, asking how he dares to say he'll die. The fortune teller tells him what's in his stomach isn't food, it's rotting, decomposing waste. He insists all the money he made won't save his stomach now. The influencer screams in rage, challenging him by saying he'll drink the bottle to prove him wrong. He adds he'll show him exactly how strong his stomach is. He warns him not to drink and tells him to call an ambulance for a stomach pump immediately. He advises emergency surgery to stop the internal bleeding. He tells him he might live 2 more years if he does. He adds that if he dares to take 1 more sip, it will be his final meal. The guy screams he'll drink it anyway. He sarcastically asks who he's trying to scare. He lifts the bottle and starts chugging greedily. Moments later, he starts vomiting massive amounts of a brown liquid that looks like rotten food. He falls to his knees, begging for help. He collapses unconscious as the crowd watches in shock. An ambulance arrives instantly to rush him to the hospital. The onlookers stare at the fortune teller with pure terror. A luxury car pulls up, announcing the 3rd client. An elegant businessman steps out, the chairman of Starlight Media himself. Surrounded by bodyguards, the man approaches the fortune teller. He presents a 10 million check, identifying himself as the owner of the building. He says he's been watching and saw what just happened. He admits the fortune teller definitely has some skills. He offers the 10 million if he'll come up to his office. He wants him to check the feng shui of his company and to predict his luck and business path for the coming years. The fortune teller ignores him completely, just looking at his phone. The man doubles the offer to 20 million, promising it's his if the readings are accurate. He promises to make him the official feng shui consultant for the company. He offers an open annual salary that the fortune teller can set himself. He answers calmly, telling him to hold on to his check. He states clearly he doesn't want to earn that kind of money. He tells him the tea he serves is way too expensive, and that he simply can't afford the cost. He stands up and starts packing his things to leave. He reminds him his working hours are over. He points to the digital clock on the tower showing 11 p.m., sticking to his rules. He firmly adds that he always finishes right on time. He says even the King of Heaven would have to wait if he showed up now. The chairman gets angry at being ignored and orders his guards to block him. He sarcastically asks if the amount is too small. He advises him as a young man to learn how to seize opportunities. He adds that as a human, he needs to be flexible. He offers to double the amount yet again. He answers with a smile that he doesn't like money. He adds that all he cares about is staying alive. He surprises him by saying the area between his eyebrows looks black, and points out the broken lines in his eyebrows. He tells the chairman that the feng shui arrangements in his building are already broken. He adds that all the money in the world won't be able to fill that gap. The chairman angrily asks what he means by that. He answers calmly, telling him to come back tomorrow morning if he wants an answer. He leaves the man standing there in confusion and rage, but before he goes, he warns him that his building's setup has already been breached. He returns home after a long day. Checking his phone, he sees the mission status is still incomplete, with 2 out of 3 readings done. The system screen shows his progress is saved and he can finish the last reading at the same time tomorrow. The next morning, he's shocked to find the chairman has surrounded his apartment complex with cars and men. The security guard stands there confused by the unprecedented siege. Neighbors exchange messages in their group chat, frustrated that they can't leave. Everyone is blocked from exiting by the businessman's men. One of the guards tells his boss he's confirmed the location. He assures him the fortune teller lives in Building 5, Apartment 502. He adds he hasn't left the apartment since returning last night. The chairman orders his men to keep a close watch. He says confidently he doesn't believe the target will never come out. He adds that as soon as he shows up, whether he's getting groceries or taking out the trash, they'll force him into one of the cars. But by noon, the man hasn't appeared at all. The chairman orders a man to go knock on his door. He adds angrily that his patience is running thin. Suddenly, an ambulance rushes to the scene. Medics rush out and carry the fortune teller down from the building on a stretcher. The chairman screams in his face, demanding a fortune reading. He accuses him of faking illness to avoid him. He sarcastically asks if 20 million isn't enough. He screams, asking exactly how much money he wants. Inside the ambulance, a medic asks the fortune teller what he thought of his acting. He answers it was a good performance. He decides to give him a 2,000 yuan reward. The medic thanks him, overjoyed. But the chairman had anticipated this trick and is waiting at the same spot that night. He's sitting on a luxury chair surrounded by guards. The fortune teller finally arrives, realizing there's no escaping this confrontation. A luxury car pulls up. He steps out holding a cup of coffee. He addresses the chairman as Master Jiang. The fortune teller sarcastically comments on the grand reception. He calls him Chairman Li. He tells him there's no need for all these fake theatrics. He adds the tea table he set up is way too high. He insists he prefers to look at people at eye level. He orders a guard to bring a low seat for him. The chairman asks why he said the feng shui in his building was broken. He tells him he cleared the entire plaza today. He adds he did it just to hear his opinion and advice. He assures him money is no object. He promises that as long as he fixes the flaw, he'll get whatever he wants. His eyes glow blue as he activates his system. The system reveals several serious failure points in the building's foundations. He addresses him as Chairman Li. He tells him he doesn't read feng shui. He adds that feng shui can't save him anyway. He confirms that what he sees are signs of the building's imminent collapse. The chairman explodes in rage, accusing him of spreading rumors. He brags about hiring the most famous experts from Hong Kong to design it. He mentions complex feng shui terms like jade belt around the waist, and adds the term gathering and storing energy. He replies that experts can arrange buildings, but they can't arrange people's hearts. He points out the wealth palace on his forehead, which should be bright, looks reddish-purple. He explains this color isn't a good sign. It's a sign of stagnant blood. He deduces that a massive amount of money was obtained illegally recently. He adds that this money carries the scent of blood with it. He moves to the area under his eyes, the children's palace, and reveals a horizontal line cutting through it. He explains that in building physiognomy, this palace corresponds to the support column in the southwest corner of the building. He asks point blank if that column has already cracked. The chairman is stunned. This was a secret no one knew. He screams in his face, calling his words nonsense. He insists the construction quality is flawless. He adds it passed every single inspection and check. He sarcastically asks which inspection he's talking about. He reveals that during the foundation work, to speed up and save money, substandard rebar was used, and the depth is 5 meters less than required. He confronts him, saying that to cover up this crime, he fired the supervisor who tried to blow the whistle. He adds that he arranged an accident to get rid of him. He warns him that this crack in the column is no longer about whether he sees it or not. It's become a matter of pure physics. He explains the building's foundations have started to sink, causing an uneven distribution of the load on the columns. He tells him he only has 3 days left. He confirms once more that this is the time he has, and adds that if he doesn't reinforce the building, the fortune teller points his fingers, confirming to the wealthy man that the building will collapse within 3 days. He clarifies that this won't be a minor accident, but a total structural failure. He tells the chairman that this is no longer a negotiable business deal. He addresses manager Lee firmly and confidently, rejecting all his financial bribes. He warns him that this imminent collapse will cost thousands of innocent lives. He tells him that the money he'll make from this project won't be clean, but the price of human souls. He guarantees that his inevitable fate will be a prison cell and eating inmate food. The chairman's crimes are fully exposed to the gathering crowd filming the event. The manager explodes in rage and panic, ordering his guards to stop all live streams immediately. He screams at the crowd, demanding they turn off their cameras and stop filming. The fortune teller calmly announces that his working hours are over and leaves. He gets into his car to drive away from the crowded plaza. Inside, he thinks to himself that he's finally succeeded in saving thousands of lives today. He returns home at night and collapses on his bed from pure exhaustion. Meanwhile, social media blows up with news about him, and his clips spread across the world. People read comments wondering about his sudden disappearance and if something bad happened to him. He sleeps deeply while Starlight Media's stock prices crash the next morning. Trading screens show a sharp drop and total collapse of the stock value after the manager's scandal. The old lady from the Shin family pays a surprise visit to his apartment and knocks on his door. He opens the door, surprised to see her there so late. She tells him she didn't come to congratulate him on his recent success. She explains she came specifically to tell him about something strange and disturbing happening lately. She starts by noting that things at Jinhai University aren't as peaceful as they used to be. She explains that students in the library are suffering from unexplained breakdowns and mental issues. She adds they claim to hear the sound of book pages turning by themselves in the dead of night. He coldly replies that this is none of his business and has nothing to do with him. He reminds her he works as a fortune teller and a reader, not a private investigator for the paranormal. The lady points out that her family is the biggest donor and sponsor of the university. She expresses deep concern that these scary incidents will ruin the school's 100th anniversary celebrations. She suggests he go check it out himself to see what's really going on. She offers a massive reward, promising him ownership of Hot Springs Valley in the western suburbs if he agrees. The fortune teller flatly and directly rejects her tempting offer without hesitation. He reminds her that he doesn't take private commissions, and that she knows his strict rules well. As soon as he returns to his room, he receives a sudden notification from his internal system. He reads the details of the new mission directing him to the west gate of Jinhai University. The mission explains he must provide consultations and solutions for students' academic problems. The system requires him to take 3 clients daily from 7 to 9 a.m. to give them advice. The fortune teller heads to the university early in the morning and sits quietly in front of the Thinker statue. He sets up his spot and carefully hangs his special sign on it. He secures it to show his specialty in academic consulting and solving students' confusion. His sudden appearance on campus sparks curiosity, and students gather around to see what he's doing. They surround him and start taking photos with their mobile phones. News and photos of him spread like lightning on campus forums under his famous title, Zhang the Half-Immortal. A young student steps forward from the crowd to be the first customer seeking advice this morning. The student asks the fortune teller, feeling confused and frustrated, if he should continue his PhD or just give up. He analyzes his features, noting he has a remarkably straight and prominent forehead bone. He notices his brow bones also look level and straight, perfectly matching it. He concludes the young man has the perfect bone structure for academic success, known as the literature star. He tells him his academic future is supposed to be prosperous and bright based on these features. He adds that these traits show he possesses quick wit and exceptional analytical intelligence. The fortune teller pauses, pointing out other negative details clearly showing on his face. He explains there's a thick, dark gray aura completely covering his features. He interprets this aura as a sign of severe rot or corruption surrounding and destroying his academic life. The student shows the fortune teller a paper, which turns out to be an official request to withdraw from the PhD program. The fortune teller asks him in shock if this request is real and serious, or just a moment of despair. The onlookers recognize the depressed young man, whispering to each other that they know him well. They confirm he is Liu Wei, the star student known in the university's physics department. They describe him as the top genius in the department and the undisputed best student. The fortune teller asks him to sit down so he can examine his case more deeply. He directs him to sit directly across from him to inspect his features closely. He reaches out and feels the student's hair and head to activate his special abilities. He asks point blank if his academic supervisor is balding early. He asks if the smile lines around the supervisor's mouth are very deep and clear. He follows up by asking if the corners of his mouth turn downward in a distinct way when he smiles. He mentions a specific black mole on the supervisor's left cheek near his nose. The student is deeply shocked and asks with a shaking voice how he knows these precise details about his supervisor. The fortune teller notices the young man's voice is trembling from shock and surprise. The student confirms the description is incredibly accurate and fits him perfectly. He adds in amazement that his supervisor, Wang Jianggong, looks exactly like that. The fortune teller confidently tells him the reason for his decline is that the supervisor has stolen all his academic luck. He explains that his nature as a hardworking student is like a strong, solid pine tree. He interprets that people with this nature are born to be pillars and leaders in society. The fortune teller notes that the supervisor's nature, by contrast, is like opportunistic climbing ivy. He explains that this type of person can only grow or succeed by climbing on the shoulders of others. He describes how the ivy wraps around the pine tree to suck out all its nutrients and efforts. He concludes the comparison by saying the inevitable result is the tree's wilting and slow death. He asks him what he's been doing during the last 3 years of hard work in the lab. He asks a harsh question: if all his research and results simply became fertilizer for his supervisor's personal success. The student clenches his fists as tears stream down his face, confirming this bitter conclusion that destroyed his ambition. The fortune teller asks about his recent important research regarding the quantum tunneling effect. He confirms to him that he knows for a fact this research is already complete and ready. He asks him to confirm this information in front of everyone to reveal the truth. The student cries bitterly, complaining that the supervisor told him his research path and methodology were completely wrong. He adds that the man unfairly forced him to change his research topic and start from zero. The fortune teller corrects this misconception, explaining the supervisor didn't really want him to change his path. He reveals the true goal was to force him to give up and hand over his successful research results to be claimed by the supervisor. He warns him that the exploitation he's facing isn't real academic study or scientific research. He tells him bluntly that he's actually living in a tight academic prison designed by his supervisor. He adds that he's been turned into mere forced labor, working without pay or credit for someone else to reap the rewards. The fortune teller finally advises him that his luck and true academic future don't lie here, but in heading north. The fortune teller advises him to head north and leave the exploitative supervisor who is stealing his efforts. He adds that he must leave this place that is draining him. The student breaks down into heavy sobs after hearing the bitter truth. The fortune teller folds the university withdrawal request into a paper airplane. He tosses it into the air, advising him not to think about dropping out. He tells him that a travel star has moved into his fortune, announcing a new opportunity. He urges him not to hide the research paper he completed anymore. He orders him to submit it for publication tonight without any delay. He directs him to send it to a prestigious applied physics journal in Germany. He assures him with total confidence that he will receive a positive response within 3 days. Another student steps forward to ask if he will pass his graduate exams. More students gather around him seeking advice. An old man, the university president, approaches, accusing him of convincing students to betray their supervisors. The president describes what he's doing as unethical work. He condemns his actions, considering them unfit for academic principles. The fortune teller replies that he is helping students distinguish between right and wrong. He addresses the president respectfully while drawing his attention to something. He tells him with a smile that his shoelace is untied and he should be careful. He warns him that at his age he might fall and suffer a brain injury. The president tells him he knows nothing about fortune telling. He clarifies that he understands physics and holds a research paper. He wonders how the fortune teller can judge things so confidently. He answers that his judgment is based on the student sending his research to that German journal. He assures him they will reply within 3 days. He explains his confidence is because the level of research the student provided is very high. He adds that the editor-in-chief of that journal is very interested in this research field. He clarifies that the editor has been researching this topic for 2 years, but he hasn't been able to make any significant progress so far. He continues that the editor is in desperate need of a strong research paper. This is so he can maintain his prestigious academic status. The president is amazed and asks if he saw all this too. He sarcastically replies that he knew all this by following physics forums. He explains that fortune-telling is about feng shui energy, but submitting research to scientific journals is information warfare. The president laughs, impressed by his intelligence and wit. His smile grows as he expresses great admiration for the response. The fortune-teller calls him by name to get his attention. He points again to the untied shoelace. He explains that the wear and tear on the right lace is much greater than the wear on the left lace. He deduces from this that in his walk, he relies on using his right foot to push his body forward. He tells him his right knee must have been hurting lately. He explains that this pain is what pushed him to subconsciously change the way he walks. He clarifies that his advice to the student to leave his supervisor wasn't betrayal. Rather, it was because the supervisor was stealing his research. He adds that this advice aims to stop his losses. As for his advice to the president to tie his shoe, it's because he represents the main pillar of this university. He warns him that if he falls and something bad happens, its positive energy will scatter and vanish. He concludes by saying this isn't considered superstition. Instead, it is a form of risk management. The president shows signs of total conviction and deep admiration for him. This incident attracts even more students who crowd around him. They are shown taking photos of him and posting them online. One of the students steps forward, asking the crowd to clear a path for her. A wealthy student approaches to challenge him, accusing him of fraud and sorcery. She dares him to predict a specific result for her to prove his abilities. She asks him to predict if she will get into the student union leadership. She tells him that if he doesn't predict correctly, she will make him famous on all campus forums as a fraud. She offers him a sum of money and asks him to start reading her fortune. She tells him the money will be his if his reading is correct. She challenges him that if he's wrong, he must scream in front of the cameras that he's a scammer. The onlookers recognize the girl as Lee Shuya, an influential figure in the finance department. Her classmates describe her as a prominent personality there. They add that she comes from a wealthy family that owns mines. They describe her as the perfect example of a beautiful, rich, and successful girl. The fortune teller coldly asks if she wants to know if she'll enter the leadership. She tells him the position of head of external relations has already been unofficially reserved for her, but she just wants to hear how he'll make up a story about it. He answers with one final word, no. He adds she won't get the position. In fact, she won't even be accepted as a simple member of the union. The crowd laughs, noting her sponsorship for the university reached 5 million. They add that half of this huge amount was thanks to her personal efforts. They wonder how someone with these achievements wouldn't get the position of head of external relations. They insist there isn't a single person in the entire student union who works as hard and as dedicatedly as she does. One of the students mocks her, saying she's just a spoiled girl who knows nothing. The fortune teller replies that her abilities are indeed strong, but he adds that her personality is very bad. He points out that her cheekbones are high and lack flesh. He explains that this trait indicates loneliness and isolation. He adds it also indicates a harsh personality that is hard to please. He moves on to talk about the fine lines around her eyes. He reveals they all indicate failed romantic relationships. He reveals that she's been involved with 3 guys at the same time recently. He adds that one from the physics department was writing her college research papers for her. Another from the PE department was in charge of booking tables and buying food for her. But the CS student was the most miserable of them all. He spent 3 straight nights preparing her election presentation. The fortune teller describes her behavior as a clear moral deviation. He explains to her that the union is looking for a good role model, not a manipulative person who's an expert at time management for their own interests. He tells her that her election rival has gathered all these scandals into a full file and sent it straight to the supervisor in charge. She asks him in a total panic about the source of this evidence. He mocks her, mimicking the sweet words she used to tell one of the guys. He continues his mockery, wondering how she could ever live without him. The crowd bursts into laughter, and she drowns in massive embarrassment. He explains that the CS student has high technical skills, and he backed up all their conversations. He did it as a precaution to protect himself from her exploitation. So, he advises her to forget about joining the leadership and to think about how to write an official apology letter instead. At that exact moment, her phone rings, showing the supervisor is calling. Her face freezes in place as she's gripped by terror. She flees the scene in absolute panic. An athletic young man comes running toward the fortune teller, asking for help. The third client, a basketball player, arrives in a hurry. He desperately asks for help finding his missing girlfriend. He explains she suddenly vanished without a trace. The crowd mocks him, thinking it's just a comedic skit. The guy insists through tears that he's not joking and it's dead serious. He tells him his girlfriend, Su Yu, was studying in the library last night, and she sent him a text after 11 p.m. She told him she was hearing weird sounds coming from behind the bookshelves. She described the sound as like nails scratching on the wall. Then she sent a help sticker. After that, contact was totally cut off. She doesn't answer his calls or his texts. He spent the whole night searching for her with no luck. He thinks she was kidnapped by the library ghost. He looks incredibly anxious and frustrated. His voice was shaking from pure fear and worry, but the crowd wasn't sympathetic at all. Instead, they watched with curiosity like it was a play. The fortune teller asks if they'd fought recently. He denies it, insisting their relationship was great. He mentions he waited in line for half an hour yesterday, just to buy her favorite strawberries. He asks if she'd complained about anything lately. He's puzzled by the question at first. Then he thinks about it for a second. He remembers she actually did complain. She said someone was always hogging the library seats, and that the grad students make way too much noise turning their book pages. Then he remembers something even more important. She said some weirdo with glasses was always peeking at her, and she was getting really annoyed by it. The fortune teller reassures him his girlfriend wasn't kidnapped by a ghost. He asks anxiously where she is then. He tells him she's at the student affairs office writing a pledge. The player is completely stunned. The students around him are shocked too. He wonders in confusion why she'd be writing one. He explains that last night she was annoyed by a student turning book pages loudly, and after he ignored her warnings several times, she lost her temper in a fit of rage. She took that box of strawberries he'd waited so long for, and dumped them all over his books, and his laptop too. He stands frozen in shock. His face turns totally pale after hearing this truth. The girlfriend he was so proud of was acting out like this in a place he didn't know about. He leaves the scene, telling him mockingly that understanding this relationship is harder than advanced math. He advises him to take care of himself and leaves him in his confusion. By evening, the fortune teller finds the campus forums are buzzing about him. Students have started calling him things like the god to be worshipped, hoping it'll help them pass their exams. Suddenly he gets a new mission notification for that night. It sets the location at a high-end pet hospital downtown. He's surprised that his task this time is reading their fortune, specifically diagnosing mysterious illnesses they're suffering from. The next day he arrives. He puts up a sign, pet language expert. He notes the sessions are only 10 minutes and pay is optional. He waits quietly for his first client. The staff wonder if he's a new doctor. The first client arrives, an elegant lady carrying a small dog. She asks if he's an expert in animal psychology, explaining that her dog, Bella, always barks at midnight. The lady adds, complaining that her dog ruined many of her luxury bags. She explains she's taken her to hospital doctors several times, but they all insisted the dog has no physical illness. All her vitals were in perfect condition. The lady challenges him to prove his powers if he really has them. She asks him to reveal exactly what the dog is thinking. The fortune teller's eyes glow purple, signaling his special ability is active. He discovers the small dog is suffering from a severe nervous breakdown. He speaks to her calmly to get her attention. He explains that the problem isn't the dog being unhappy with her bags. Instead, the dog finds the lady herself to be a major source of noise and annoyance. The lady rejects the word noise in total shock. She angrily asks where this accusation came from. She insists she always speaks in a calm, sweet voice. He tells her that what she thinks is calm is unbearable noise pollution for the dog. He explains that a dog's hearing is way more sensitive than a human's. He adds that the sound of her high heels while walking and the shuffling of mahjong tiles are constant, annoying thuds to her. He adds that the sound of her daily mahjong sessions and the clashing tiles are massive noise to the dog. He also points to the loud parties she throws after 9 p.m., where the loud music and loud voices damage her hearing. The dog is shown lying sadly with teary eyes. The lady screams in his face, calling his words total garbage. She defends herself, saying she set up a very comfy home for her. She wonders why the dog doesn't just sleep when she's tired. He tells her she can't sleep at all. He explains her doghouse is right next to the living room, so when she plays mahjong, the dog smells smoke. And at parties, guests are always pestering and annoying her. He confronts her with the fact that she doesn't treat the dog like her child, but just as a social accessory. She angrily asks why the dog chews her bags then. She sarcastically asks if the bags are noisy too. He answers that her chewing isn't out of hate. It's because they carry the scent of other dogs from outside. He adds she especially hates her brown Birkin bag. He reminds her she was carrying it yesterday afternoon, when she went for tea at her friend Mrs. Sun's house. He notes her friend has a white Samoyed. He asks her to confirm if he's right. He explains dog jealousy is way stronger than she thinks. The dog feels her territory was invaded, so when her owner comes back smelling like another dog, it's a betrayal in her eyes. Since she can't attack the other dog, she found no way to vent her rage, except on the bag carrying the enemy's scent. She's trying to tell her over and over by chewing it, that she must be the only spoiled dog in her life. The lady is totally convinced and gives him a huge amount of money. She thanks him and leaves, hugging her little dog. He watches her walk away. Someone calls out to him from the crowd. A delivery guy rushes up to be the second client. He tells him anxiously that his cat looks possessed. He begs him to take a look and see what's wrong. His system reveals the cat has neurotoxicity and is in critical condition. He orders him to open the box immediately. The delivery guy opens the cardboard box he's carrying. The cat appears extremely sick, almost taking her last breath. He tells him to look at her miserable state. The fortune teller tells him she's not possessed. She's suffering from poisoning. The delivery guy is in total shock and disbelief. He explains his cat never leaves the house. She's always kept inside. He wonders if he accidentally fed her something toxic. He insists he only gave her cat food and water. The fortune teller tells him the source of the poison is in his home. The system identifies it as narcissus plant extract. The guy insists his home is very clean. The fortune teller agrees. He adds that he cleans it daily. The fortune teller asks if there's anything else in the house. He insists there must be something else. The guy denies there's anything strange in his home. The fortune teller asks if the air at home felt bad lately, and if he wanted to purify it somehow. The The guy admits his windows are small and ventilation is poor. The fortune teller deduces that's why he bought a new plant. He describes it as a green plant, with long, thin leaves, currently blooming with small white flowers, and he put it on the balcony. The guy realizes the description fits the narcissus flower he bought. He mentions the seller told him it was easy to care for, and that it helps purify the air at home. The fortune teller slams the guy's ignorance, saying the flower itself isn't the issue. He confronts him with the fact that the cat licked the toxic narcissus leaves, or drank the poison-tainted water in the pot's saucer. He explains the whole plant is highly toxic, and this plant is a deadly poison for cats specifically. He lists the symptoms, starting with severe vomiting and seizures, then progressing to total nerve paralysis, and ending with the heart stopping completely. He notes there should have been plant remains in the cat's vomit, but the guy couldn't notice them in his panic. The guy breaks down in shock, realizing how bad the situation is. He's drowning in regret and pure fear for his cat's life. The fortune teller orders him to rush to the vet hospital immediately to save her. He tells him to inform the doctors she's suffering from narcissus poisoning. He insists on urging them to make her vomit as fast as possible. He adds they must perform a stomach pump and provide antitoxin treatment. He warns him that any delay, even 10 more minutes, will make saving her impossible even for the gods. He screams at him to move fast and not waste time. The guy thanks him deeply and dashes off carrying his sick cat. He's shown running full speed toward the vet hospital gate. A vet comes out from a nearby clinic and starts challenging the fortune teller. He tells him his diagnosis sounded very professional. Then he sarcastically asks which university he graduated from, and questions if he has a state-certified veterinary license. The doctor argues that cat stress reactions are complex. He adds that the causes of vomiting and diarrhea are many and varied. He insists that before doing any biochemical tests, concluding it's plant poisoning is totally illogical. He calls this behavior completely irresponsible. The crowd starts doubting the fortune teller's words. They wonder if the diagnosis was wrong and she has another illness. The doctor asks the fortune teller if he's ready to take responsibility for a wrong diagnosis. The fortune teller asks the doctor what tests he ran on the cat and what meds he prescribed. The vet admits he suggested comprehensive tests, including a full blood count and biochemical exam, but adds the owner didn't have enough money for the costs, so he had to prescribe some stomach supplements and sent him home for her condition to stabilize. The fortune teller mocks his logic, asking if that's his idea of responsibility. He slams him for letting an animal on the verge of death from poisoning take a bunch of useless supplements against neurotoxins. The doctor gets angry, defending himself by saying it was the standard procedure. He insists a diagnosis can't be made without tests. He maintains that's the basic principle of medicine. The fortune teller fires back that these principles will be the reason the cat dies. Meanwhile, the guy comes running back from the hospital. He arrives panting and tells the fortune teller he's an absolute genius. He repeatedly thanks him, saying his brilliance is mind-blowing. He presents a medical report confirming he told the doctors she was poisoned by a daffodil plant. They made her vomit immediately. He adds that they actually found flower leaf residue in her vomit. He confirms the test results are out too. They proved him right. She was poisoned by licorine. He tells him she got an antitoxin shot. She's out of danger now. The young man shoves the report in the doctor's face, shouting, asking if he still thinks the fortune teller is irresponsible. He adds that he knew the problem with just one look. He screams that the doctor's tools are less accurate than the fortune teller's eyes. The crowd is stunned by the accuracy of his predictions. The doctor stands silent, consumed by shame. Pet owners swarm the fortune teller, begging him to check their animals. He calmly tells them he has his own rules. He announces he only has one reading left for the day. People start bidding for this last chance, with one offering 2,000 yuan. A big bald guy with a parrot on his shoulder stands in the crowd. The fortune teller chooses him as his last client. The man steps forward, saying there's no need for the teller to move. He'll come to him. He asks why he was chosen. He insists his bird is perfectly healthy. He adds it eats and sleeps great. He claims it's healthier than he is. The fortune teller agrees the bird isn't physically sick, but he hints that this specific bird has become way too talkative lately. The parrot suddenly screams, "Honey, open the door." Then it yells, "The password is 8888. It adds, "Let's go on a date," and continues, "Don't let my wife know." It finishes with, "You naughty girl." The narrator explains the bald man brought it to watch the scene, but he didn't expect it to open its mouth and spill all its owner's hidden secrets. The man tries to justify it, claiming the bird is talking nonsense. He adds shyly that it learned these phrases from TV, but the parrot repeats, "Honey, open the door," making the owner even more embarrassed. The crowd describes the bird's style as professional and polished. Someone mockingly asks what kind of shows the man watches on his TV. The man tearfully admits his wife is always fighting with him. He adds she suspects he's cheating with another woman. He sadly explains their relationship is about to end in divorce. He begs the fortune teller to help clear his name. The teller struggles to hide his laughter while watching. Then he clears his throat, getting ready to speak. He decides to step in and help the man in his crisis. He tells him the source of the problem is his bird. He explains it learned all these new words recently. He reveals the source is a stuffed toy inside his car. The man denies having such a toy in his ride. He adds indignantly that as a grown man, he wouldn't have such things. The parrot suddenly screams that the password is 4/8. It repeats it again, confirming it's 4/8. The man is hit with a massive shock, his body trembling. His face goes totally pale in a second from sheer panic. The fortune teller confronts him with the truth. He's hiding a phone under the front passenger seat. He adds it's a secret backup phone. He reveals the password to unlock it is 4/8. He explains that every time he talked secretly in his car, the parrot was listening to every word, and now it's memorized all his secrets and scandals. He tells him what his wife hears at home isn't just mimicry. It's a live, direct audio recording of his actions. It's like a live broadcast of what actually happened. Total silence falls over the place. The crowds look toward the bald man changes. Their eyes are full of a mix of shock and pity. They think this isn't even a fortune reading. It's more like a public execution with surround sound. The parrot keeps repeating, "Don't let my wife know." The man's phone rings, showing the caller is his wife, saved as the Tigress. He answers in a confused, terrified voice. The fortune teller gets a notification from his internal system that the mission was successful. It rewards him with a decrease in brain tumor cell activity. It also includes an increase in his remaining lifespan. He also gains a new, unique ability, known as spiritual ear, or telepathic ear. As for the panicked bald man, and his fate, or whether he'll be punished by kneeling on a washboard, we can only wish him good luck in his confrontation. The scene shifts to later that night as a luxury black car arrives. An archaeology expert nicknamed Old Chien steps out. The fortune teller is lying in his apartment, tired after a long day. He wakes up to a knock on his door. He's surprised to see the expert, who calls him by his full name, Zhang Feng. The expert confirms he's indeed the right person. The teller asks the reason for this unexpected visit. He invites him into his apartment to discuss it. The expert tells him they got his medical report through special means. He reveals the tumor in his brain hasn't worsened. On the contrary, it started to calcify and harden. He adds that cancer cell activity is steadily decreasing. He explains he came today, not to force him to do anything against his will, but to represent the state in giving him an official invitation. The state is asking for his help in a special research project. He curiously asks what it's about. The expert says the research involves things they can't understand. The first victim is shown to him in a private facility. He appears muttering incoherent words, his consciousness blurred. He continues his mysterious mumbling nonstop. Experts watch from the control room, and one calls the teller a fraud. He mockingly adds he wants to see what this kid has up his sleeve. Chen gestures for everyone to be quiet and focus. A scientist points out the teller's hands. He appears on the screen sitting in the test room. It turns out the frequency of his finger tapping perfectly matches the victim's lip movements. The atmosphere in the observation room suddenly changes. A strange, unexplainable feeling of harmony takes over. The scene grabs everyone's full attention and focus. The look of contempt disappears from the skeptical professor's face. He fails to find any words to reply or object. The fortune teller enters contamination mode, where his subconscious telepathy is amplified. His internal system begins decoding abnormal neural waves. In his vision, he sees the victim drowning in water. Seaweed is tightly wrapped around his feet. Water flows into his mouth and nose. He feels a burning pain in his lungs. He opens his eyes and asks them to check his file. He asks if Zhang Yuan was 7 years old when he had a drowning accident in his hometown river and almost lost his life in that accident. After he finishes speaking, dead silence fills the observation room. The professor screams in shock that this is impossible. Expert Chien orders his men to verify this information immediately. Expert Chien orders his team to use all available resources. He demands they immediately contact the local authorities. He stresses the need to check household registration records thoroughly. He directs them to visit the victim's family and question them. He gives them a deadline of no more than 3 minutes to finish the task. He insists he wants a confirmed and accurate result. Time passes quickly while everyone waits in anxious anticipation. The expected reply comes over the phone. The results confirm the fortune teller's words perfectly. He speaks to him over the mic, confirming they verified the info. He mentions the victim's hometown is Jiang Village in Joku City. He adds that 21 years ago, when he was 7, he had a drowning accident in the old Huai riverbed at his village entrance. He was unconscious for over 5 minutes. He was saved at the last moment by the villagers. He only got out of danger after 3 hours of resuscitation attempts. The skeptical professor repeats in a state of shock that this can't be possible. He reveals the archaeology team contacted the young man 3 days ago at a dig site. He explains they found a set of bamboo slips dating back to the pre-Qin era. He adds that everyone who touched those artifacts developed psychological disorders. Within just 1 week, they all showed abnormal symptoms. They started talking in mysterious gibberish no one understands. The teller asks the expert why they searched for him. He wonders what role they want him to play. He answers that he wants him to decode those bamboo slips. but he clarifies they just want him to take a look from his own perspective. He asks him to go to the archaeological site to examine them. He makes an attractive offer, noting they have the best medical team in the country, plus a secret biological lab not open to the public. The teller, suffering from a brain tumor, starts seriously considering it. The expert adds they might be able to offer a real cure for his condition. He thinks to himself that his internal system only gives him life extensions, and every mission he does only delays his inevitable end by a few days, while the state's offer represents a real chance to remove the danger for good. He decides to take the chance, even if it's just a wrong guess. In the worst case, he'll treat it as a paid business trip. He finally agrees. He tells them not to waste any more time. He demands the next victim be brought in immediately. The second one is brought in, a woman tightly restrained. She screams hysterically, asking them to leave her and burn something. She repeats her screams to burn everything. An expert in the control room notices her obsession with the word fire. The lady points at a guard and screams that it's on him too. She threatens she'll burn him as well. The fortune teller calls Professor Sun in the control room. He asks him to immediately find a text from elementary school books. The professor confirms he received the request. The teller urges him to hurry up. The school text content is broadcast over the room's speakers. The lady hears nursery rhyme lyrics saying, "The calf is still grazing on the hill." As soon as she hears it, her condition starts to improve gradually. She whispers while still dazed, asking where she is. In her vision, a memory of a hallway appears, where she was a little girl trapped behind a door, screaming for her mom. Her mother appears, breaking through the flames to save her. She whispers "Mom" as she regains consciousness. The teller gently places his hand on her forehead. He quietly tells her the fire is over. He reassures her she's perfectly safe now. She finally closes her eyes and falls asleep peacefully. He explains to the experts that their team members didn't go crazy. He reveals the bamboo slips summon the deepest terrifying memories, as if they were forced to watch a VR movie. They were living through it day and night, repeatedly and continuously, being forced to rewatch the worst nightmares of their lives. Expert Chien finally realizes the truth. He concludes it's a type of compulsive psychological suggestion, which mainly relies on triggering memories. Professor Sun adds that the information waves coming from it may directly affect specific brain regions, like the amygdala and hippocampus responsible for memory. Suddenly, the third victim enters the room on his own. He reaches the containment room, but he was totally different from the previous two cases. He wasn't screaming or making any noise. Instead, he sat in total peace and absolute silence, with a wide, creepy smile on his face reaching his ears. He looked like a broken machine repeating the same expression. The teller calls him Professor Liu. He asks him about a hot summer 30 years ago. Then he surprises him by asking if he lost his daughter, who had just turned 5. Upon hearing these words, the man completely breaks down. His creepy smile vanishes, replaced by heavy tears. He whispers his missing daughter's name, Nana. He bursts into a bitter crying fit, as the pain he suppressed in his heart for 30 years finally exploded in this emotional moment. The fortune teller reveals that the bamboo slips amplified the deepest regret in the professor's soul. He explains that 30 years ago he was one of the country's top young scientists, but he got tied up in a research project abroad. He couldn't make it back in time. His only daughter caught severe encephalitis. She was rushed to the hospital for treatment. By the time he arrived, it was too late to save her. He lived his whole life drowning in guilt. The only way he could comfort himself was repeating the idea that his little girl loved seeing him smile. If only he had smiled in the hospital instead of crying. If only he had smiled. Maybe she would have felt happy, and maybe she would have woken up from her coma. The fortune teller explains that the slips caught this morbid obsession. Then they turned it into a piece of code that repeats forever. So, the man wasn't really smiling. He was using what's left of his life to offer a silent, endless apology to his daughter who will never return. He ends by saying this was his silent, constant apology. The professor collapses to the ground in deep grief. Guards rush to help him up. The fortune teller asks them to take him to rest. He recommends a psychiatrist stay with him. He points out there's no need to say anything. They should just let him cry. He confirms he'll feel better after emptying his heart. The fortune teller decides to take a month off to recover. He's seen standing by the sea at sunset. He gets a notification from his system saying it detected a state of extreme comfort. The system concludes he's feeling too relaxed at this moment, so it issues him a new mission immediately. The mission is set in Media Production City. The system asks him to read the fortunes of actors. The mission location is a film set in Jinghai Film City. The reading method is bone analysis and appearance. The mission field is fame and success. It aims to complete 3 successful fate readings for the characters. The next day, he arrives at the production city. A director shouts at the extras to stop using their phones. He sets up his spot amidst the filming vibes. He puts up a sign, casting by physiognomy, changing fate with makeup. An extra mocks him, thinking he's new to the place. He adds sarcastically that even scammers are facing stiff competition now, and that they've started using precision targeting methods. The fortune teller coolly replies, telling those who don't believe to stay away. The first actress comes forward to ask for a reading. The girl asks if he can really cast actors by physiognomy. The teller asks her how long she's been an extra. She answers that she's been in the field for 3 years. She adds sadly that she only gets maid roles. She wonders in shock how he knew that. He tells her sarcastically that her facial features only fit maid roles. The girl cries, saying everyone tells her that her face meets current beauty standards and that it looks beautiful on camera. She asks him desperately as she sits before him if she'll ever get a lead role in her life. He tells her the problem isn't that she lacks lead quality, but that she herself turned her lead features into those of a maid. The crowd laughs while she looks at him in shock. She screams at him, denying she had any plastic surgery. He agrees she didn't have surgery, but he confronts her with the fact that she injected her face with too much filler, and that she filled in all the sharp angles of her face. He explains she had a prominent bone structure that gave her a strong aura. It would have made her perfect for military leader or empress roles. But one injection wasted all that potential. Now, she can only play a maid, who screams behind her mistress that something went wrong. He asks her sarcastically what else she could possibly do. The girl asks in shock what he means. The crowd starts mocking her and calling her naive. They sarcastically wonder how she could dream of a lead role. They hurl harsh insults, telling her to look in the mirror. They rudely ask if she even deserves the part. The girl desperately asks for the solution. He advises her to go to the hospital immediately. He tells her to dissolve all the substances that don't belong in her face. Then he directs her to the set of The Bloody Tomb nearby. He adds they're looking for an equestrian stunt double for a female general role. He explains the role is very dangerous, and that nobody wants to do it. He assures her this is the turning point of her career. He urges her to seize this chance. He promises her that if she succeeds, she'll get her own role within a year. He warns that if she fails, she'll be stuck in maid roles forever. An assistant director rushes toward the teller after seeing the scene, trying to stop him. The director scolds him, accusing him of being a wandering fraud out to trick people. He yells, asking if he's unaware this place is for filming. He firmly orders him to leave immediately. He threatens to call security if he doesn't comply. The director reads the sign mockingly, pointing out the claims of casting and changing fate. He sneers, asking why he doesn't just name the lead of the show directly. He insists with contempt that he's seen many charlatans like him. He accuses him of exploiting naive girls chasing fame. Then he spits in disgust to show his extreme revulsion. He challenges him to read his fortune if he has the guts. He mocks him, waiting to see how he'll try to scam him. The fortune teller begins speaking to him calmly. He tells him the area between his eyebrows looks pitch black, noting that the ends of them look scattered and messy. He adds another note about his lips being noticeably pale. He concludes these signs are a bad omen predicting financial loss and an imminent disaster. The director explodes in rage at the teller's nerve to predict the worst for him. He points his finger, threatening him and insisting he doesn't care about his words. The teller cuts him off, warning him about the explosion scene scheduled for today. He reveals the explosives were planted in the wrong spot, specifying exactly that the location is off by 3 meters to the left. He warns him that today's loss won't just be money if he doesn't fix it, pointing out he'll lose the hand he's holding the walkie-talkie with. The director's face turns red with rage after hearing these terrifying predictions. He screams, threatening the teller and swearing he's tired of him being alive. The scene is interrupted by the explosives expert running in a panic. He shouts, warning the assistant of a serious disaster. The assistant scolds the expert for his annoying shouting in front of everyone. The director sarcastically asks if the sky has fallen to justify this panic. The trembling expert explains he did a final check of the site. He confirms he found a fatal mistake in the explosive placement, explaining they are too close to where the lead actor is standing. He insists they must be moved 3 meters to the left immediately. The crowd gasps in massive shock as his words match the teller's predictions perfectly. They mutter in awe, considering the teller has real divine powers. Silence and amazement sweep through the entire film city. The events prove what he did silenced everyone without exception. Everyone watched him with reverence, trying to get close to this great expert. They whisper in fear, insisting no one dares anger someone with such abilities. The teller notices a strange, suspicious movement nearby. He points at a specific person, asking him to step forward, announcing the last reading of the day is for him. It turns out the man he called is a stunt double living marginalized in the shadows. The double speaks to him with tears in his eyes, complaining bitterly about his life and career feeling lost. The teller explains that the original actor he doubles for has nothing but good looks. He assures him his own face carries depth and stories that appearances can't express, pointing out his rival's handsomeness is just makeup and fake vanity. He praises his features, calling them the result of real, deep life experiences. He analyzes his bone structure, describing it as a lurking dragon waiting for its chance. He also describes his personality as tough and relentless. The teller denies the idea that the double's future is lost as he thought. He explains he has the fate of a true great dragon by nature. He blames him for allowing himself to live as a shadow and follower to someone else. He reveals he sacrificed his life to pay off his gambling-addicted father's debts, and that he tied himself to an unfair monopoly contract because of it, pointing out he accepted hiding in the shadows as a double for the lead, adding that he endures the pain and injuries the spoiled actor can't handle. The scene shows the unfair contract document binding him to those heavy debts. The double recalls painful memories of being beaten and insulted because of it. The teller confronts him with the fact that the original actor won Best Actor thanks to his effort. He mocks that he only got a measly $30,000 reward. Concluding this contradiction and injustice is the true cause of his misery. The teller directs him toward a film crew for a movie called Dust, describing it as an art project with a very low budget. He explains the crew is so poor they can't even provide meals, but he assures him his gateway to glory lies in that humble film, explaining they are desperately looking for an actor with a real soul and talent. He orders him to go audition under his real name, not as a double, warning him not to use his previous status as a famous actor's double there. The young man's tears flow, moved by the encouraging words. He bows in respect and reverence to the teller who lit the path to his future. Then he leaves the place with confident steps toward the film crew. The teller starts packing his things to leave. The old expert reappears, blocking his path. He starts talking, offering him a new and surprising position. He reveals his desire to hire him as an evaluation consultant for a secret project. He politely asks him to listen to the details of his offer. The teller coolly rejects the offer, citing his official working hours are over. The old man praises his honesty and directness. He decides to get straight to the point. He explains the entity requesting his help is the Academy of Sciences, explaining they're gathering top minds for a project with a code name, stressing its importance as a secret, national, and fateful work that defines the country's tech future for decades. He complains about the difficulty of distinguishing between applicants due to their diversity, explaining some brilliantly forge their resumes, while others misleadingly exaggerate their scientific achievements. He concludes by giving him an official invitation for the evaluation and screening task. The old expert explains they want to hire the teller as a special evaluation consultant for Project Pangu. He gets a sudden notification from his system about a new mission before he can reply. He reads the mission details, which set the location in reception room number 3 at the Jinghai branch of the Academy of Sciences. The system sets the execution time between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. daily. It requires the reading style to be monitoring the person's energy and luck. It explains the goal is to provide an accurate evaluation of the potential abilities of 3 candidates. It adds a condition that the evaluations must be verified and confirmed practically. The teller goes with the old expert the very next day to the Jinghai headquarters. They enter an office to find a man in a lab coat waiting for them. The expert introduces the man, explaining his name is Fang Chenshui. He adds that Fang is the lead scientist in charge of their secret project. The expert addresses Fang to introduce his guest, telling him this young man is consultant Jiang, whom he mentioned earlier. The teller ignores Fang's attempt to shake hands and sits on a small wooden stool he brought with him. Fang asks with extreme annoyance what this strange behavior is about. He points out irritably that there are comfortable chairs in the office meant for sitting. The teller coolly replies he's not used to sitting on such fancy chairs. He adds he prefers using his own things because they're more comfortable. Fang lets out a sarcastic sigh, expressing his resentment toward the teller's actions. He presses a red button on the wall to call the first candidate. The candidate enters the room wearing a sharp suit, full of confidence. Fang introduces him proudly, claiming he's a genius elite doctor. The teller activates his special eye ability to monitor and analyze his energy. He sees the candidate's energy manifest as a burning tree. He notices it looks fiery and flashy on the outside, describing it as bright and eye-catching. He clarifies that its base looks rotten and hollow. He tells those present that this candidate's genius doesn't come from himself. The teller confronts the candidate, noting his energy carries an old scent full of resentment. He adds this energy doesn't belong to him, but to someone else. The teller reveals the candidate's achievements suddenly appeared after the sudden death of his supervisor 3 years ago. He explains his research results started exploding suspiciously only after that incident. The candidate's features change, showing signs of extreme stress and anxiety. Fang screams in anger, accusing the teller of talking nonsense. He asks passionately what the real intent behind his veiled accusations is. He accuses him of hinting that Dr. Lin's academic achievements are stolen. He considers these accusations an unjustified personal attack. He demands he take full responsibility for his dangerous claims. The teller calmly suggests they conduct a thorough investigation. He asks them to check certain files regarding the candidate and his supervisor. He specifies the need to examine all unpublished research manuscripts belonging to the late supervisor, focusing on the importance of searching specific records. He asks to check all records regarding the lab accident that killed the supervisor. The old expert orders a full background check on the candidate over the phone immediately. He sets the search goal in the files of the late supervisor, Professor Li Qingguo. Fang watches his watch anxiously while the old expert gets a call saying people were sent to arrest the candidate. Security guards lead the candidate out after his truth is exposed. The old expert tells the room that the late professor's encrypted hard drive was breached. He explains they found unpublished manuscripts and calculation data inside. The old man confirms this data largely matches the research the candidate published recently. Fang sits in his lab, shocked as he grasps the most important and terrifying point. He realizes the lab accident 3 years ago was planned. He remembers the candidate was the only witness to that fatal accident. The scene returns to the office where the teller explains that papers and documents can be forged. He adds that scientific equations and formulas can be easily copied and stolen. He clarifies that a person's energy and aura can never be faked. He explains the candidate was hiding guilt and internal turmoil, and that his energy was weak and shaky because of his sins. Fang is finally convinced and admits the candidate's achievements were stolen. He resigns himself to calling in the next candidate for evaluation. The teller hopes they don't waste any more time. The teller yawns and stretches his arms, announcing he wants to go out for some fresh air. He wanders the halls of the research center amidst the surprise of some employees. He monitors the energies of passing researchers and finds them ordinary and mid-level. His features suddenly change, showing signs of amazement. He spots a janitor in a corner whose energy manifests like a massive purple dragon exploding with power. The old expert and Fang look attentively toward where he's staring. The first asks the teller what caught his attention there. The teller points at the janitor, confirming he's the genius they're looking for. Fang screams with a red face, asking if he's joking. He explains this man is just a simple janitor named Uncle Lu. He adds he works in the center's logistics department. He confirms he's been sweeping floors here for over 20 years. Pointing out this janitor is about to reach retirement age soon. The teller approaches the worker and tells him using his hands just to wipe machines is a huge waste. The worker tells those present that the bearing of this central centrifuge is off by 0.03 millimeters. He warns that if it keeps spinning with this defect, he confirms the superconductor samples inside will be completely ruined. Fang is hit with massive shock at his precision. He rushes to the machine's control screen to check. The screen shows a warning confirming a precise deviation of 0.03 millimeters. He screams in total disbelief after seeing the number. He holds his head, not believing, and asks how he knew, wondering in awe how the worker discovered such a precise fault. The worker simply answers he could tell by listening to the machine's sound. He explains its sound while spinning doesn't seem normal to him. Explaining the sound seems a bit weak, comparing its state to a human who looks fine on the outside. He adds it might look healthy externally. He concludes that the machine's internal parts have become loose and need maintenance. The old janitor justifies his stance shyly, noting his tone lacked confidence. The teller activates his eye ability again to check him closely. He sees a mysterious purple aura hiding inside his body, describing that aura as a bright light folding into itself within the body. He declares confidently that such luck and aura couldn't belong to an ordinary person. He confirms this man carries the fate of someone who is a cornerstone of the nation. Shock and awe appear on the faces of expert Qian and Professor Fang. The teller looks at the worker's rough, scarred hands. He explains this man spent the first half of his life making the state's most important weapons and machines. He adds sadly that the second half ended with him as a worker cleaning floors and removing dust, noting this man fell from the highest peaks of glory to the bottom. The teller comforts the old man, assuring him what happened wasn't because of him or his mistake. He adds that his marginalization was just a tragedy and a mistake of that era. Expert Qian calls up his top-secret file to confirm his identity. He reveals the janitor is actually Liu Qinbang, the chief engineer of nuclear reactor cooling systems. The latter looks at the file with tearful eyes, calling the man by the respectful title, Mr. Liu. He apologizes bitterly to the old scientist, admitting their failure toward him. Professor Fang bows in respect to the great scientist who is hiding in a janitor's uniform. Scientist Liu smiles calmly and speaks to the young teller. He asks curiously how the latter managed to reveal his true identity. The teller answers that when he judges people, he never looks at their achievements or past, nor does he rely on what they can offer in the future. Instead, he only focuses on seeing if the flame of determination inside them is still burning. He assures Scientist Liu that the strength of his will and soul exceeds the energy of everyone wearing white coats in this building combined. An elegant girl enters the room, announced as the third candidate for the interview. She heads toward the teller, smiling and guessing he's consultant Jiang. She kindly expresses her happiness to meet him, Noting she's heard a lot about him, he is hit with a massive shock when his special eye reveals this candidate is nothing but a robotic machine.